That's how it's gonna be, a little test tube.
It's most likely to be a highly infectious virus.
9 steps at a Times Square station. Smashes it on the side.
Welcome to the Zero Indent Review, a show dedicated to handcrafted studies of genre fiction. I'm author DC McNeil, and I'm joined, as always, by Patrick from A Method to the Madness, the hiring manager at a logistics firm that will one day trap you in Malaysia during the end of the world.
Mm-hmm. And I won't drop my keys.
Oh, that's actually really smart and good of you. But will you organize a boat to get me out of Malaysia?
Yeah. I have a heart of gold. I can
Did you hear the hesitation on that? Jesus Christ! Wow. All right.
It's a lot of organizing to do.
It was like, how much is the boat?
Yeah, if it's not too much of a hassle for you, I guess. Jesus. We're joined once again by Darth, a dinner party guest with some really boring anecdotes, but I have to be honest, I wasn't really listening because I was mostly paying attention to my husband, who was pretty obviously cheating on me and isn't really bothering to hide it anymore.
Out of all the scenes in both episodes, and that's the one attributed to me.
Yeah.
Lovely.
I was like, what's the most emotionally incomprehensible scene that Darth won't understand? Got it. End of marriages.
The one with the women.
The one with the decaying marriage and the confusing women. Welcome back, of course, to our continued study of post-apocalypse stories, brought to you by the Zero Indent Patreon subscribers who help make the shows and articles that shape Zero Indent. Today we are talking about Station 11, episodes 3 and 4. We are treated to a Miranda's tragic life bottle episode, and then we have a bit more plot. But I think the real question today is, we're talking about the end of the world, the post-apocalypse, and I have a world-ending hangover. So I've kind of nailed the vibe of the show. We've had technical difficulties. We're just really crushing it at the moment. It's all coming up Millhouse. So before we get into it, what did we think of today's episode, Station 11, 3, and 4? What's the vibe? Darth, I want to go to you first because I feel like these episodes do nothing to help clarify what the show is.
True. And I'm going to make my disclaimer and admit something. So the notes that I took for the first two episodes also had my character list on them, and this morning I was like, I don't need these notes anymore, so I'm going to throw them away. So now I don't remember any of the characters' names anymore because I don't have them written down.
That feels like a problem okay. Well,
yeah.
Great.
So I'm just going to be back to calling them female lead and stuff like I've been doing for all of our other recordings.
That guy, protagonist person, lady who the episode's about.
We got Evil Mango and anyway.
That's fun.
I absolutely loved the fourth episode.
Okay.
I was so deep into it. The third one, even now, I'm like, I don't understand why it's here until I won't understand it until later. So I'm trying not to be angry at it too much right now. Even though everything was fantastic from, a storytelling perspective. I was getting into the characters and the way that everything flowed, I was, totally fine with. I was just like, this doesn't fit with the other main stuff. And, I could hear David's voice in my head going, not yet. So,
I mean, yeah, it's fair. I mean, it kind of does. It does a little bit. We literally start the show with Arthur dying, and this is about one of Arthur's marriages decaying. But yes, you're right. This is a real, this won't be anything until I think the next episode we watch is when this should click into place, I think. But yeah, once again, a little bit structurally unusual. I don't disagree with you there. But yes, in my head, this is always the Miranda's tragic life bottle episode that is that until it super isn't later. Yeah, Pat, what about you? How did these two episodes find you?
Structurally unusual, yeah, I'd say that's about right. But although I kind of think that these two episodes gave me exactly what the show is going to be about. It's exactly what you've been describing, to no surprise. That it just you know, this show is just, especially episode 3, it's just such a swirl of like emotions and feelings, and then the next episode is very clearly about like the power of art, you know, how it profoundly like shapes the course of people and stuff like that. How you can touch the sublime, you know, what kind of truth it gives you. Episode 3 is just, it's just such, there's so many feelings, like, so from like conversation and interpersonal relationships, and specifically, like, I feel like the other episodes are a bit more meditative, a bit more like introspective. The episode 3 is purely about like relationships between people and external awkward feelings and stuff like that. And it juxtaposes really well with like the rest of the episodes, I feel. This show seems to be about like kind of like, I don't know, everything, just about like the human experience.
I think that's probably accurate.
But, yeah. I don't know. I just kind of feel like I understand. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but I feel like this show is like the sci-fi part, the astronaut part was kind of a red herring. It's not going to go into that at all. I think it's just going to be about. I think it's just going to be about people going on.
He's calling his shot, folks. He's calling his shot.
Yeah.
There you go. Let's see, shall we? Yeah, I do agree with you that to me, these 2 episodes, in particular the Miranda episode, is just, it's the most, like, as a TV show and, like, as a writer, you could sit down, spin your chair around, and, like, say to camera, this is my thesis on, like, what this show is about. One of the things I did want to give you, this is from an article by David Collins, specifically about Lauren Cass. I'm not going to talk about the Lauren Cass bit. Sorry, the article is by Max Rynan. About David Collins. And it's called Associative Structure and the Absence of Casual Narrative Progression. And I just want to give you a little section here, which I think maybe expands a little bit on some of the frustrations Darth has. But like, I just think it gives us some language that we can use to talk about what makes this show different than what you're expecting from like normal television or normal stories. And he starts with this Greg Curry line from Greg's 2006 book where he says, "One way to test any theory about the determinant features of any narrative is to construct cases in which those determinants, or the things you claim are determinants, are varied in the service of then seeing whether intuitively this results in a variation in the narrativity of the discourse. While causality, conflict, and change are almost universally held to be necessary conditions of narrative itself, not every fictional work that plausibly counts as a narrative, in fact, contains these elements. Among the small number of films that downplay or de-emphasize causal connections between scenes and events, most tend to fall into one of 2 groups. The first consists of films containing multiple storylines that are only loosely related, e.g. Nashville, Code Unknown, and many of Guillermo Arriaga's screenplays. The second consists of anthology films, comprised of a number of separate, self-contained segments linked by a common thread or theme, e.g. Dreams by Kurosawa, Slacker by Linkler, 3 Times by Who. What is notable about the film I want to focus on here, Chris Fuller's Lauren Cass, is not only that it eschews all 3 C's, causality, conflict, and chance, but it is also non-causally based plot doesn't fit into either of the above groups, and more closely instead resembles outliers such as Gummo and The Exiles in its approach to structure and character. These last films fall within a subgenre of American independent cinema, and then he goes on. But the things I wanted to put forward were causality and conflict as the 2 bits of language that I think we need to access here in order to sort of better articulate some of the maneuvers that Station 11 is doing. Because, for example, the Miranda episode does not necessarily logically, causally follow the end of the previous episode. The end of the previous episode, episode 2, ends with Alex singing her dirge and Kirsten stabbing the stranger, and then the stranger vanishing the next morning. This Miranda episode doesn't have anything causally to do with that previous episode, nor is there any conflict that is generated by that previous episode that is carried through to the Miranda episode, right? And so I just wanted to give us that language here, because I think one of the things that that Ryan does in that article that I think is something that we will end up doing is going, okay, if that's the case, what does that produce for us? Where does that provide limitations in the text? And what does that do to how we're taught by the text how to read the text, right? How does watching the television show and going, okay, that episode didn't seem to have a lot to do with that previous episode, why is it here? How does that teach us to better meet the text where it is, and how does that teach us how to understand what's going on, right? Because I think a more cynical person could look at that Miranda episode and go, it's a bottle episode, that was a waste of time, it didn't progress the plot. I think that's a thing I could see some people thinking, that you have to, that's crazy to me, but like I think you could reasonably attend that position and hold that with a fair amount of confidence if you're not sort of thinking too deeply about what the episode is saying, right? Like there's a difference between an episode containing themes and then an episode expanding on those themes and having something to say about them. And that Miranda episode to me is going, here's a thesis about like art and the human experience and in some ways love. And also here is a thesis about this guy, Arthur Leander, right? I mean, that we also have to keep in mind is that Arthur is ostensibly so far the connective tissue between every character, right? Every character that we have is 1 degree of separation away from Arthur Leander in some way. He is sort of the central figure in Station 11 at the moment. Obviously, he's not the protagonist, right? That's Kirsten, but that is also something to keep in mind is that if we think of this as an anthology story, instead, these anthologies are connected by Arthur as the kind of the common element in all of the anthologies, if you like.
Yeah, he gets imbued with like some sort of cosmic significance.
Yeah, and
in this show,
he seems like he's not a great person to have in your life either. That's something that I think we'll increasingly talk about. Is like Arthur might be a little bit like a piece of shit, kind of, maybe, which is pretty fun.
I had an interesting thought while you were giving that description. And I think I couldn't answer this question until the entire series is finished, and then I can go back and rewatch episode 3. But I'm wondering if it will make more sense if it does tie into the previous episode, because you get these glimpses of her writing the book over the course of, you know, however many years or whatever, and like, do some of the drawings change over time? Does some of the text, you know, some of the dialogue in the book, does it not make it into the final version? And does that text that we see little clips of, does that change the context of episode 2 or tie into it in any way? So I kept trying to figure out if that was going on during episode 3 and I just didn't know enough to catch it yet, or anyway.
Well, what's interesting is when she burns down the pool house, that's where all of the artwork is. So she ostensibly burns the book down once completely and starts again.
Yeah.
So I think you're factually accurate. Like, I think there's like a thing we're supposed to understand is like the version that Miranda is working on throughout the story is maybe different than the one that endures with Kirsten through the end of the world. But the other thing is that the Prophet seems to be parroting lines from Station 11 and in some way weaponizing them or using them to engender young people into this cult he has, which we'll get to. You know, so then I think we also have to go, all right, well, what ideas is Miranda putting into this book, and to what extent do Kirsten and the Prophet understand the book to mean different things, right? We get our first glimpse of Kirsten talking about what the book is about when Jeevan's like, you know, you keep reading that damn thing, but like, is that because it's good or just because it's the only book you have? And then he's like, you know, read me some. And she gives the line like, to the monsters, we are the monsters. And he's like, what does that even mean? And then she gives an interpretation, right? I think it will be interesting to see if this show pursues presenting us with the Prophet's alternative understanding of what Station 11 means and what the ideas in it are used to represent, or how they're, you know, instrumentalized by the Prophet in this cult that this alleged cult that he has. And in particular, this cult of children, right? I think that's probably the key piece there. Is you've got Kirsten who's grown up with this book, and then you have the Prophet using this book in some way. to manipulate children. I don't think that's an accident.
Haven't we already seen his side of it? Like they specifically say that like he wants to get rid of everyone who lived through the horror because they're damaged, and we need like the pure people to remain. And so like his message from the book was like you have to really kill the old world to let the new one take over. And maybe like Kirsten is getting the opposite. Maybe it's like this book is her connection to the old world, or something like that.
Yeah, I've written down here in my notes, quote, "Let the past die. Kill it if you have to. That's the only way to become what you were meant to be."
I was really about to quote him, but I let it go so I wasn't quoting Star Wars because you got angry at me last time.
And then I'm a little snicker. I'll do it this time. Yeah, but yeah. So, all right, let's get stuck in. There are so many things to talk about today. So we are first talking about episode 3, Hurricane, directed by Hiro Murai and written by Shannon Houston. I have to be honest, gang. This is the most Hiro Murai fucking episode of television ever. I was watching this and I was like, yeah, this could just be something out of like a season of Atlanta. It's like a side story episode that goes really deep into one person's life that like ostensibly just is a vibe. Yeah, this is really, it's so pretty, this episode. I loved it. All right, Pat, when you're ready, can we please hear the summary?
Welcome to the Miranda bottle episode and another journey through the end of the world. In the Ven, Miranda interviews as the PA to Leon Prevalent at a logistics company and meets Arthur Leander, a movie star. Miranda goes to Clark's birthday party with Arthur. The three drink together, and Arthur's intentions with Miranda and Arthur's relationship with Clark remain vague. Miranda spends the next day with Arthur and they end up together. In the days before the collapse, Miranda flies to Malaysia, now an executive at the recently acquired logistics firm. While there, her boss Leon tells her to leave Malaysia. The flu has mutated. The only way out is by sea. As Miranda flees the hotel, she leaves a voicemail with Arthur. In the Then, Miranda struggles with the fame of being Arthur's wife. She escapes by working on her comic book, Station 11. Miranda and Clark weather a disastrous dinner party where Arthur barely hides his affair with Elizabeth, his co-star in a recent film. Miranda walks out of Arthur's life that night, burning down both their marriage and her comic book. The days of the collapse, Miranda heads back to her hotel with designs on dying. She and Jim give their pitch to the Chinese, but both sink into the realization they are really going to die. Everyone is. And Miranda hugs Jim, the last person she will ever touch in this life. As Miranda seals her hotel room, she opens the door only to see the golden masked spaceman, Dr. 11, waiting for her. "I have found you 9 times before, maybe 10, and I'll find you again. There is no rescue mission. We are safe."
Bars, man, honestly. God. That, I don't know. Okay. Now, a lot of this is just lifted straight from the book. Like, the lines from Station 11 are just from, like, the book. And by that, I mean, like, the novel, not the comic. You know what I'm trying to say. From Emily St. John Mandel's text. But, man, Miranda's delivery of these lines sometimes, man, gives me goosebumps. It's just so evocative and rich, and it really makes you go, like, is this a good book? Is it? And the answer is, I'm not sure, but I'm sure we'll get to it. I wanted to quickly earmark something, and then we can talk about the opening and how this goes through. I kind of footnoted this at the end of last episode, but I thought it was worth repeating, which is Station 11. We talked a little bit about violence and things like that, obviously with Kirsten stabbing the stranger. I wanted to make a little earmark here, because I'm sure we'll come back to it, which is, I think in Station 11, indeed both the show and the novel, Emily St. John Mandel seems to comprehend violence as being socially located rather than some like inherent experience of the human condition. You kind of get that through a bit of the conversation that Alex and Kirsten have, where Alex is like, oh, like it's Like, it's weird that you take weapons, like, to a play or whatever, to a performance. And Kirsten's like, it's not weird to me. I just want to earmark that as, like, one of the thesis that I think this story has is that violence is socially located, not necessarily that... I think sometimes when people read, say, like, a book like Lord of the Flies, I think there can be a tendency to have the quite generic and understandable takeaway of, like, oh, well, like... all people are capable of violence. You just have to put them in the right conditions. I think Station 11 is a bit more canny than that and seems to understand that violence is produced by social conditions and is a product of the social and the social's exclusions rather than being some like ineffable quality about people that you just got to put them in the right position and anyone would do anything to survive kind of thing. I just want to put a little pin in that because I think it'll be relevant later. Something to note. Okay, let's talk about the opening. We start with Miranda, where we get more lines from the book, which will be relevant to the end of this episode, where over the narration she says, I remember damage, then escape, then adrift in the strangest galaxy for a long time. But I'm safe now. I found it again. My home. We go from there to her job interview, where she's going for a job interview with Leon Prevalent. It's a French name. I don't know how to say it. And this is really fun because they do a thing in this adaptation that is really interesting where... I'm trying to think of a simple way to say this. These two characters are not black in the book. Miranda is specifically like a skinny blonde woman. And one of the things about Arthur in the book that makes him seem like even more of a shitheel is he basically just keeps trading his wives for newer models, which is pretty gross and awful. But I kind of like the change, and obviously this actress is incredible. The kind of patter of this conversation, there's two bits that I pulled out here. I'm curious what you guys made of this, where we get, Leon asks, do you know the meaning of logistics? And Miranda says, the path things take. Leon says, not the path, the right path. Watch me now. Point of origin, and then he does it around her head. He goes, end point, okay? Logistics is not time or space, it flows. The shortest path is 6 inches, but the right path starts at your point of origin, goes around your head, and travels to Des Moines, Iowa, before hitting this end point. Des Moines, Iowa is hypothetical. Miranda's like, I understand. Like, she follows him very easily. She's clearly quite switched on. And he says, where do you see yourself in 20 years? And she says, working for you or we'll all be dead. The irony. She will die literally in 20 years because of this job. So both things turn out to be true, which is just great structuralism. What do you guys make of this this job interview, if anything, and in particular the logistics piece?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little microcosm of like the feelings that this show produces. Speaking of causality, like it's non-linear. But they, things are connected, just not in a very straightforward way. This episode has nothing to do with the apocalypse per se. But the object flowing through time and space that eventually ends up in Kirsten's hands and profoundly like shapes her as a person, kind of thing. Like that's, there is a start and an end point, but it's just, it's non-linear and it does what it needs to do, and it does what it does, kind of thing. Yeah,
and I think the key thing there that you just said, which I want to like tap into, is like it is a physical object. Like the comic book is a physical object in time and space that like where it physically is matters, and like matters a lot to Kirsten, and we get a lot of that in the next episode. But like it matters to these people where this comic book is. It deeply matters to Miranda where this comic book is. And it just to give you the definition of materialism again, and then we can expand a little bit. Materialism is the idea that the world is reducible to physical, massy objects that are produced by and exert ideology. We were just talking before about, like, to what extent does the book inform the prophet's ideology? To what extent is he manipulating the book to produce his own ideology? what ideology does it exert on Kirsten and on the world, etc., and so forth, and what experiences do Miranda have that might influence the book, and you know, I think a life working for this logistics company and traveling around constantly probably has some influence on like what ends up being in Station 11, right? It seems to be, so far, from what we understand, a story about someone getting lost in space or something, and you know, this character, Dr. 11, kind of being in the middle of some great disaster aboard this space station, and being trapped between two factions that have, you know, radically different ideas of what to do with this place, you know, and that's maybe how she sees the world as well. I think the other part that I was going to ask you, Darth, is, you know, this is the most like a character, how would you say this? This is clearly a character who like in Leon with this little pitch that he has about, you know, logistics. This is a character like being both expository, you know, giving a bit of exposition, which is to say like, this is a logistics job. She will be traveling, which will be important. But also a bit of ideology. Was this good for you in that it was very direct, or did you not pick up on how direct it was about pitching the show's themes?
No, I don't know that I... The only thing that I'm now wondering is if I could see that the logistics speech could end up being like a central idea that doesn't make sense until later on, because the way that he described it, I don't know, to me, like, immediately I was like, oh, he's talking about like a wormhole or something like that, when he was like, it's not just from here to here, it's like you got to go around your head and then go through and all this stuff, and I'm like, it turned like kind of sci-fi-y to me, so I'm wondering if that's going to somehow come back, even though like I totally get the point of, because I mean, like, you were just talking about like your novels getting published the other day and how it like they stupidly do this thing in New York when they should be doing this other thing, and how complex the whole thing is. Mm-hmm. No, I was mostly just taken aback by not taken aback, but I was, his character is very engaging. And then the other thing that I was thinking during that section was just how different that experience is from everything that you see nowadays, when it comes to like interviewing and stuff. Like, the fact that she actually got a face-to-face interview, and like, it wasn't, no, you have to go and get on the computer and fill out, 5 more forms, and in 6 months we'll contact you again. It's just like abhorrent, at least over here. I don't know what it's like over there for you guys. But... Back
in the ancient year of 2000.
Yeah, it's pretty bad everywhere, Darth, to be fair. Yeah, the distant past of 2000. What is funny is that like this is a real logistics guy before 9/11 happens, because 9/11 changes the world forever when it comes to logistics, and it's like, yeah, you would say that type of thing before 9/11. After 9/11, not so sure. But it is, as you were saying that, Darth, I was like, in Darth's head, does he think this motherfucker's about to pull out a portal gun and be like, yo, this is my black hole machine. Step in, son. That'd be funny. God, people that have read Sea of Tranquility are losing their minds right now. Anyway. Okay, so let me set up the next little bit, and we can talk through any key points that you guys had. So in 2020, which is when the flu was sort of accelerated to in this adaptation, I think it's set in like 2016, like when the book comes out, I think is when the flu is supposed to have happened in the book. But so it's 2020, and Miranda is sent to Malaysia. She's now an executive for the firm, basically needs to go help with this pitch, to go help this guy from the parent company, Jim, who it seems like maybe Leon doesn't trust to get the job done. And she literally just gets in and then has to leave again, but she has enough time to stop in and see Arthur, and drop off the comic book, which is the exchange that we saw in the first episode. And then we get a flashback to, I shouldn't say flashback, then we sidestep into Miranda and Arthur first meeting, where she's in a diner and she's sketching the astronaut. And he basically just starts talking to her. It has the weirdest game I've ever seen in my entire life. And she ends up going with him to Arthur's birthday. And Arthur wants to buy one of Miranda's pieces because Clark is convinced that Arthur is a flake. And Arthur's like, well, I'm not a flake, but I have to get him something. And he said that I wouldn't get him anything because I'm a flake, and I'm not a flake. And it's like, dude, you're being a flake right now. You didn't buy him a present. What are you talking about? And then we get some stuff with them in the bar, and a little moment where Arthur tries to interpret Miranda's work, which again I think is a key idea we've already touched on, which is the interpretation of Miranda's art and Miranda's work is like a central thing the story is interested in. Yeah, where do you guys want to go to with these little set of sequences here?
Well, there's in this episode there's so many lines and instances of people interpreting other things, and or not even necessarily interpreting, but like quoting something that is not immediately like the meaning isn't immediately apparent, and like it is obviously meant to be interpreted or evoke many different ideas and stuff like that. That happens a lot in this episode, and then I think it's funny, like linking it back to this scene where that's exactly what Arthur is doing, and then she hands him a picture of a banana, and it's like dashing all this like deep interpretation with something really banal. I don't know. I feel like this show is just like sort of toying with people like us specifically, like the show is everything and nothing. And like the human experience and like these complex emotions and stuff like that, you can articulate such scenarios and such ideas, but also it's a different experience to just like experience it. You get something else out of it if you don't talk about it, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like sublimely mundane. And yeah, I really love I think what you've said there is correct, where it's like it's going, hey, isn't the world really big and complicated, and aren't there a bunch of like really big and complicated ideas, but also isn't it just about isn't life about experiencing life at a certain point? And the Arthur's interesting here because he is sort of placed as he's famous is something else we should say. He's like a famous movie star by this point in his career. And he and Clark seemed like they went to uni together or something like that. And don't worry, we will talk about the Shakespeare bit, I promise, because I have like 3 pages of notes on that. But their position in a really interesting way, where Clark is kind of the real person in this trio of people. Like Clark and Miranda are real people, and Arthur feels like a series of affectations almost. Is that how you guys understand this dynamic of the three of them? I'm thinking in particular of where we go back to the bar that night, and Arthur's over there like talking to the bartender or whoever it is, trying to convince him to stay up late or whatever. And Miranda doodles a shape. She's just like drawing on a piece of paper or whatever. And she describes the shape as a feeling. And she says it's a feeling. Cut and run.
When a squall comes up so fast, you gotta cut the anchor and just go. My dad did it once. Sliced the rope right in front of us with a fillet knife.
At that point,
No.
I pointed and I yelled out, I was right, even though I wasn't really, really right, but I was calling it a fish hook. And when she called it an anchor, I was like, bam, that's close enough. Fishing and anchor, they're both on the water. I was right. David was wrong. It's not a knife. Boom.
That's not the... That's a different thing. That's a different thing. The knife is Kirsten's tattoos, you lunatic. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if that? Anyway, that's I like that you've claimed the win, even though it's completely not related.
That shows my artistic memory, because I was just
Yeah.
like, oh, she's drawing a thing and it looks like the other thing. It's probably the same thing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, what do you guys make of Clark and Arthur and Miranda? In particular, I'm interested in the Clark of it all, as opposed to Arthur, because boy howdy, we're gonna want to remember that for next episode.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't necessarily think that the Arthur's behavior was like affectatious, because I don't know. I feel like Arthur is just the kind of person that doesn't know what he wants to be like. You know, almost like just get famous, become a movie star because that's the thing you do. So, you know, I guess maybe I'm implying that he's a bit like vapid. He chases things that he thinks he should want. You know, fame, you know, sex with your hot co-star, you know, being the big shot, you know, talking to the owner of the bar, convincing him to let you stay there kind of thing, rather than talking to your friends. Yeah, like I don't think he's necessarily like being fake, but he definitely doesn't have his. He is very far from being self-actualized.
Okay, you've articulated that much better than than how I did. Yeah, that is much closer to what I meant when I said a series of affectations, in that he seems very changeable. You know, and he has a very particular, like, weird cadence to how he talks as well. Like, he has this slight French Canadian accent, and he just sort of like, every time he speaks, it feels like he was in the middle of a thought, and then just casually like has changed that thought and then started saying it out loud. I don't know, there's something about his presentation perhaps that that makes me feel like he's very changeable in that way, and that he is just sort of, yeah, like you say, Pat, doing things because it's what people do, and that's what makes you a person.
That's exactly what Jim says at the end of the episode, isn't it? I went golfing because I thought that's what people do.
Patrick Laverne, solving texts left, right, and center. Boom. Put that on Wikitropes.
As we always say, that's a thing you can do.
That's a thing you can do, is solve texts. Famous zero indent quote. Every text with enough time and energy can be solved like a puzzle. Famous zero indent adage. Yeah, Darth, what about you? What's your vibe on Arthur and Clark? And how did the flirting treat you? Because I imagine that was a little bit insufferable for you in some ways. Because it was a little bit for me. Arthur just seems like a bit, I don't know. The vibe was weird. It was a weird vibe.
I found it ironic that, like, the descriptions that both of you were giving, I'm just like, yeah, that's an actor. Like, it just seems like it's like not all actors are like that, but the ones who are like the upper tier echelon douchebags, like it feels to me like they don't know who they are. They are searching to try to become someone, and so then everything is in affectation because they don't know who they are yet. And I don't know if, like, the story is trying to intentionally, you know, have him showing that, or not, because, like, there's a scene when Miranda comes in to get something out of the bedroom, and he's in there and he's like, why won't you talk to me? Why won't you have a relationship with me? And so it's like, part of the time he knows what people are supposed to be doing and he's asking for it, and then it's her not giving it to him. But then the way that their entire relationship starts, like you said, like, the flirting was not, like, those are red flags that you should be worried about, in my opinion. Not to say that I wouldn't be, like, I would be more awkward. I would say worse stuff. Like I'd come out and just say, I'm not going to murder you. Like I would be worse. So if if they're just depicting him being awkward, but it kind of came off more forceful. It didn't come off at all charming like an actual experienced actor would do. Like normally, nothing's coming to mind, but if it's a movie that's about an actor and they've got that charisma and they know how to turn it on and off because they're an actor, and he doesn't have that to me.
He doesn't lay it on too thick, is what you're saying. Like he's very casual, but as you say, still a bit forceful. That's just the funniest pickup line. Like, hey, I'm not going to murder you. Like that's the new. That's don't say that to me.
I was about to say, I was literally about to say, zero indent dating tips. You should open with, I'm not going to murder you.
Because you know who would say that? Someone who's thinking about murdering you. Oh my God.
You have to set boundaries early in the relationship. And I'm just saying, for me, that's a strict boundary, is I'm not going to murder you. I just want you to know.
Okay. I like that he goes, he keeps thinking that he knows her. And they clearly don't know each other. And I don't think I don't think it's a line that he has. I think he genuinely is like, do I fucking know you from somewhere? And then he goes, he's like, I love Chicago. It's very mellow. No, it's kind of easy. And there's no paparazzi. And that was when I went, Arthur, famous guy. No paparazzi, interesting. But then also, a detail that I don't know if it's still here or not. Maybe I shouldn't say it in case it does come up later. But in the book, Arthur and Miranda have something in common that isn't revealed yet in the show. I'm interested to see if they reveal it later. But it was where that line made me go, oh, did they change this in the adaptation? They might have done. But we know that he was from some small island in Canada somewhere. And it seems like maybe Miranda was from somewhere with fishing as well. So there might be something there. I'm not 100% sure. But it's just interesting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not. That's not me bearing a lead. I genuinely don't know.
One just like quick line that I really appreciated was when he's like, no, I really need this. I need this gift. I'll give you $1,000 for that picture. And she gives like 2 seconds of nothing. And then, ha! Like the biggest, like she can't control the laugh. And it's just one single, ha! And it was like, it was so genuine.
So real.
I just like, I adored it. And I don't know if that was her acting or if it was the writing, but whatever it was, I'm like, I loved that. And the reaction was like, ha, you'll never give me $1,000. I could use $1,000. And then she never like goes after it again. I don't know. The way that played out also was odd. But the whole thing, I thought he was a creeper. So I was like, I wouldn't take the money either because he's going to murder you, which I would not do.
Yeah. I feel like that ha was maybe a reaction to, like, I think that was an affectation. He is, trying to impress her or keep the conversation going or doing something and saying the part about like, oh, there's no paparazzi as well. He's obviously trying to express without expressing that he is somebody kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then
and she picks up on that.
I was going to say she picks up on that, and that's when she's like, okay, I'm not interested. Like,
yeah.
But I like it when he goes to interpret her work and he says, I like how much this conflates your initial understanding of Arthur, because the thing we were saying before about him seeming changeable doesn't necessarily mean he's vapid, because he says the subject of your work is a person, not a spaceman, which it's like, okay, that doesn't actually mean anything. He's alone, not unhappy, adrift, a bit exhausted, but his heart is warmer and lighter than they realize because he wears a suit for protection, which is just like, I think probably wrong. Like, I mean, first of all, it doesn't really mean much, but like, also, I don't think that's true based on what we understand of Miranda's perspective on drawing this character, right? But his heart is warmer and lighter than they realize. I don't think that's true. Like, this seems like a character who is tragic in some way.
This is the palm reader version of interpreting art. What he's doing in this scene. It's just like getting like general like vagaries that could be applied to anything that are like specific enough to the work of art.
It's basically a horoscope, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're drawing a character, but he's not a character, and he's happy, but he's not sad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And he's alone, but he's nicer than they think, but also he's not nice,
Yeah.
and he.
Does he say he's adrift? It's like it's a spaceman. Like it's such an obvious connection.
I
Like,
know.
yeah, he's adrift.
It's so stupid. But she ends up. He invites her to. She's going to this party. He's like, you should come in. And she's like, I have to get home. And thinks about it for a minute, and then does in fact go in. But yeah, I quite enjoy Arthur pretending to have a view on this artwork, only to just give her this horoscope is extremely funny.
But it worked. So I should
know.
be over here taking notes. Like this is a successful pickup situation. But
This
it
does
shouldn't have been.
require a very specific set of circumstances, which is the girl that you would like to see is drawing a spaceman in front of you. So it is not going to come up a lot, I don't think. But you never know. It's like, what's your type? My type is women who doodle astronauts in diners. That's my type. Okay, do you guys have anything else, or should we, before we talk about the Clark and Arthur bit, where they talk about Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, because then we need to talk about Hamlet, because the next episode is called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Aren't Dead. So I have to give you guys a bunch of Shakespeare theory, basically, in order for us to actually be able to talk about the next episode to an extent. So do you guys have anything else before that moment where they compare each other to Rosencrantz? No, well, she compares them to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, to be fair.
Wasn't it Clark that was who was it that he was saying that like this is how we met? We were playing these characters.
So they say that they met doing plays together, and that's where she said, so which one of you is Rosencrantz and which one of you is Guildenstern?
Okay.
It's a
thought I
fair
remembered
assumption that like it's a pretty reasonable assumption that if you grew up doing theater, you probably did Hamlet at some point. And they are the exact two types of people that you would cast as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, because they're old friends and they're chummy, and they play a very small part in that play, which I will explain in a sec. But yes, that is the setup.
The only other part that I had is it's difficult to nail down exactly what the author was trying to say about Arthur in that moment, because you've got Clark yelling at him to come over and be with them and stop talking to the owner, but that could either mean that that Arthur is being rude to his friends, or it could mean that he is just so freaking sociable that he gets distracted by any living person, and there's nothing malicious about it at all, because I know people like that, and you got to literally remind them, hey, you got to come back over here. We're over here, And so at that point I was like, he creeped me out with the beginning, but now is he this friendly with everyone, or is this another red flag that I should be watching out for? So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think that the show is landing one place or the other yet. Okay. It is Shakespeare theory time, guys. That's my new segment. All
right, I'll be right back.
Yeah, yeah. Darth's like, I'm going to buy a gun. No, so okay. The dialogue we get is Miranda says, which one of you was Rosencrantz and which one of you was Guildenstern? And Arthur goes, oh, that's the joke. They're interchangeable, like Clark and I. You can't tell. And then Clark says it's probably not the same anymore now that he's a movie star. Then Arthur says, I'm still Rosencrantz. I invented sandwiches. And Miranda says, you guys end up the same at least. You both get killed by Hamlet. So, first question, do you guys know who Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are?
No, I'm not familiar with Hamlet.
Yeah, it's been so long.
Man, we have to do Hamlet for the Patreon. That is my promise. After Michael Clayton, we will. Okay, so basically, the plot of Hamlet, for those who don't remember, is that Claudius, Hamlet's uncle, kills the king of Denmark, Hamlet's father, and marries the queen to become the king. And Hamlet is on this like revenge quest to try and claim his revenge and complete his revenge on Claudius. And the whole thing, like we talked about last time, is it's really a tragedy because Hamlet ends up doing way more damage than was ever done by the death of the king in his pursuit of revenge. And halfway through the play, Hamlet is in a position where he's basically run out of allies, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, who are childhood friends of Hamlet, are sent to spy on Hamlet by Claudius. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they're like the OG homies of Hamlet. They're like his last friends in the world, and even they get manipulated by Claudius, and he sends them to spy on Hamlet. Hamlet kind of puts their deception together. I'll give you more details in a second of like how this all plays out. But he puts this deception together, and he delivers a famous monologue, which is the "What a piece of work is a man." Sorry, "What a piece of work is a man" speech. So I'll give you, which is actually where we get the phrase "piece of work." Fun fact. I will now give you said monologue. So strap in. It's time for some Hamlet. Time for some Shakespeare, boys. A lot of other podcasts, they wouldn't do this. They'd say, "It's off-putting. It's boring. We don't want to hear it." That's not us, man. We do the brave things that other podcasts aren't willing to do. That's a zero indent promise. All right.
It's the kind of courage you get on this channel.
That's the kind of bravery that you get. You can help support us at patreon.com/zeroindent. Okay, here we go. Quote. "I will tell you," this is Hamlet, right? And this is Hamlet just as he's figured out that they've deceived him, and he's saying this to the audience as a monologue. "I will tell you why. So shall my anticipation prevent your discovery, and your secrecy to the king and queen. Malt no feather. I have of late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercises, and indeed it goes heavily with my disposition. That this goodly frame the earth seems to me a sterile promontory. This most excellent canopy the air, look you, this brave o'erhanging firmament, this majestic roof fretted with gold fire. Why, it appeareth no other thing to me than a full and pestilent congregation of vapours. What a piece of work is a man! How noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how in express and admirable, in action how like an angel, in apprehension how like a god. The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals, and yet to me, what is the quintessence of dust? Man delights not me, no, nor woman neither, though by your smiling, you seem to say so." What this means is basically Hamlet is saying that this betrayal, he's saying like people talk about the world and life as this magnificent thing, and they would point to this thing and they'd say this is beautiful and that's beautiful, and a man is like a god in his ability to appreciate the beauty of the world. And Hamlet's saying, but to me, like, what a piece of work is a man. Like, the last essence of his faith in humanity has been drained and killed by the fact that his best friends, his oldest friends, the only people he thought he could trust in the world, they're neither steady nor true. They betrayed him too, and thus all men are nothing but dust, and nothing delights him. They've robbed him of his last happiness.
First of all, good job on that reading. That was very good, very expressive.
Thank you.
I feel like some of your deep-seated like want to be a Shakespearean actor sort of came out just then.
Shakespeare's the only thing I can do. It's the only acting I can't, because it's easy, because it's couplets. It's da 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 da.
Also, I feel like so this is he talking to his friends?
Yeah, okay. but it's a Shakespeare play, so it's a monologue to the audience. It's never clear what's diegetic or not. But yes,
it's funny how the level of like exacerbation and like betrayal is proportional to how verbose this section is. Like, the fact that he is so like eloquent is like an expression of just how pissed he is, kind of thing.
It's classic
is
Hamlet.
How it seems to me. Yeah.
It's a real that's why Hamlet's one of the best protagonists. Like, you put him up against like someone like Macbeth, and when Macbeth feels deeply about something, he'll say like 4 really compelling sentences. But with Hamlet, when he gets pissed off, he just like never shuts the fuck up. He's such a great protagonist. Where it's like,
Is that
bro,
who you
say
patterned your
less.
life after?
Hey, wow, uncalled for. Come on, dude. This is Shakespeare theory part of the show. You can't be mean to me during the Shakespeare theory seminar. Uncalled for.
You read the monologue. You put yourself literally in his
Yeah,
shoes.
I know. I set myself up for it. That's unfortunate. Yeah. Okay, so basically this is happening. So Claudius sends Rosencrantz and Guildenstern with Hamlet to England after he does a murder on Polonius by accident. But Hamlet does some tricky stuff, and it's not important, or germane to what we're talking about, but Hamlet effectively gets Rosencrantz and Guildenstern sentenced to death. And the use here to me of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, the use in Hamlet of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern is usually argued to be part of the play's thesis about revenge producing more violence than the inciting incident, like I was saying before. These childhood friends of Hamlet's are ultimately instrumentalized by the state, in this case Claudius, and they ultimately become innocent victims of Hamlet's violence, but it feels justified in the play because they were spying on Hamlet, right? When they die in the play, you kind of go, yeah, fuck those guys. But then when you walk away and think about it, you go, wait a second, they were just doing what they were told by their king, right? They were taking orders, and then you can start to think about what revenge and duty and all the different themes that Hamlet is ostensibly about. And so I think Arthur and Clarke being conflated as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, I found very confusing until, and this is where it just makes your brain hurt a little bit because there's a lot going on here. Until you consider the 1974 play by Gilbert, which was Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, wherein it's told from their point of view, and Rosencrantz is in love with Ophelia. And he does a bunch of nonsense that gets Hamlet sent to England so he can be with Ophelia. It obviously it's like an AU play, alternate universe fiction. And so when Arthur says, I'm still Rosencrantz, this is maybe foreshadowing his challenges with romance, right? His willingness to lie and manipulate to get with the women that he desires. To be honest, if you think about the way that Rosencrantz, in comparison to Guildenstern, is talked about, they're often interchangeable. That's the joke that Arthur and that Clarke says. He's like, oh, you don't understand, we're interchangeable. That's the joke. But actually, it's when he says, I invented sandwiches, then I went, oh, I actually do understand this, because that's from the play that later becomes the film Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, in which, among one of the many things that Rosencrantz claims to have done, he says he invents the sandwich. And one of the jokes in that play/film, and we'll probably watch the film for the Patreon, is they make all these claims about all these amazing things they've done because they're side characters that no one cares about, so they have to invent all these lies to make themselves seem important. But then they both keep forgetting what bits they've said they did and what bits the other person said they did. And so it becomes a joke. The film ostensibly plays up on the fact that these characters are so small in Hamlet that people get them mixed up, but then in this film, they also get each other mixed up all the time, so they kind of treat themselves like they're the characters from Shakespeare. And then when Miranda says, you guys end up the same at least, you both get killed by Hamlet, that I think is trying to say something, because obviously Kirsten in the future they're in the middle of performing Hamlet, and the play that we get in the next episode is a reimagining of Hamlet in gangster Chicago or whatever the fuck. Kirsten was friends with Arthur. There's something is being done here with the inclusion of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern in the larger context of the show, and I have no idea what it is. But it's here. It's all centrally located around Hamlet. And I think the biggest takeaway for me, before I throw back to you guys, is the positioning of Arthur as Rosencrantz and maybe what that says about his romantic relationships, and his willingness to manipulate, which is maybe a bit of foreshadowing for where this episode goes. And then Miranda's line, you guys both end up the same at least. You both get killed by Hamlet. We don't know what happens to Clarke, but we know what happens to Arthur, which is he dies on stage doing Shakespeare, obviously not Hamlet, King Lear. But I don't know. There's something there. What do you... Sorry, that's just, I needed to put all that out there. I'm curious what you guys think.
Okay. That's
a lot.
It's a great big block of information. Yeah, I think. I mean, look, Arthur is the inciting incident of this show. We see in this episode that he's driven to become the main character, Hamlet. The fact that he ends up ignominiously, the same as the other dude in the end. I don't know, there's something there about failed ambition maybe, but still being instrumental in a story.
Yeah, or even that he's not that special. He's just a guy. Is also, I think, something that's definitely in there. And then, it doesn't matter that he's this big famous movie star. He's also just, he gets killed by Hamlet in the end anyway. It kind of doesn't matter how big and important you think you are. And also, I think him referencing the comedy, the comedy film that's the follow-up to the play that's the follow-up to Hamlet, I think is also working that angle of making him seem a bit more vapid if you know what's going on. Because Clark is referencing the actual play, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and Arthur is referencing the comedy film, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Aren't Dead. There's something about Arthur that is more vapid or less serious than Clark, perhaps implied by that.
Uh-huh.
Darth? Thoughts? Feelings?
Okay. One thought, just because it was funny and I keep thinking about it, is during the monologue, when Hamlet was like, men are terrible and mankind sucks and everything is awful. Oh, and I hate women too. That line was in there specifically, and I was just internally I lost it. I thought that was hilarious. That's not even women make me happy anymore. It was
it's really fully a subtweet as well. He's absolutely subtweeting Ophelia right there. It's bro, you didn't need to do that. It's fine. You don't have to drive by your girlfriend. It's cool. You can just say that man delights me not. It's fine. It is very funny.
So the question that I had is it being really literal when it's talking about Arthur and Clark being Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and if because it seems like they are the two closest people to Miranda, and you could say that, I mean, definitely Arthur betrayed her, but then Clark knew about the cheating and didn't say anything until she directly asked him. So that's also a betrayal. So, and then you could also fast forward and say, if Miranda's Hamlet in the past, then is Kirsten Hamlet in the future? And she was betrayed, quote unquote, by Jeevan abandoning her, and then Alex abandoning her in the next episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could make that reading. Absolutely. And I don't think it's ridiculous to just consider Hamlet as the idea of being the main character or the protagonist in a play, because that's ostensibly the argument that Alex and Kirsten get into in the next episode, is about who is the lead. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a completely valid way to comprehend of this, where it's she's the lead and she gets betrayed by these two people that are supposed to have her best interests at heart. And Kirsten gets betrayed by Jeevan, and then Alex, the two people in her life that are supposed to have her best interests at heart. I think that's pretty legible to me. I don't know if I read it that literally, but I think that's a pretty legible way to understand this. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone wants to be the lead, it seems, because it gives you importance, gives you significance. But who knows? Maybe that significance is it's vapid. It's not really there. It's you're reading into an astronaut when really it's just a banana.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem with that is what we had talked about last time, though, is that the entire reason that Kirsten was doing so profoundly well in that in depiction of Hamlet was because of her remembering when her parents died, right? And so the idea is that it's not the role, it's the actor doing the role. And so the fact that Alex is just like, I can do this, and then she does it and it's absolutely amazing, kind of like contradicts what we saw before, where it was the past trauma that gives you the ability to perform, and Alex doesn't have any trauma. She's like pure, right? So the way that Alex pulls off the same role in a way that the audience also blows up over just doesn't mesh to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with the trauma piece, but the reason why it's so convincing is that she and Kirsten are actually mad at each other. So when they have that fight, because they're basically doing the reinterpretation of the scene where Ophelia, the Hamlet basically tells Ophelia to fuck off, which she literally does in this adaptation, which is extremely funny. So I also think it's like, well, there's two sort of approaches to acting that are put forward then, right? You've got Kirsten, who is drawing on real emotions that really happen in her real trauma. Then you have Alex, who is playing off the other person and playing off the situation in the moment, in the present, as two different ways to bring emotion to a scene, or embody a particular moment or character. It's like, do you kill the past and live in the present and just use the moment, or do you, reflect and respect where you've come from and the history and everything that happened? Because we're going to get literal othering in the next episode of people from before the pandemic. Like Alex has a term, she has terminology for it now. She calls them pre-pan. That is new language that we haven't heard before. It's like, okay, now we're producing social groups from these two different approaches to acting / the world,
Alex is cutting and running, as Miranda says. She's grabbing onto that feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, this is a very much this is a me having problem with story thing that I'm sure y'all don't. But I hated that there was no setup to Alex being like, I want to be you never let me be the lead. And like, I would have liked some kind of line or something in like the second episode when they're setting up that play that we see, and Alex like looks unhappy or something, because it's like she looks perfectly content in everything that we see her in up until this point, and now she's yelling, "You never let me be the lead," and I'm over here like, where did this come from? And like,
well,
I understand
the
it.
Of the prophet.
Say what?
Right. That's the influence of the prophet. He incepted that idea into her that like she should be the lead kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I didn't catch that at all. Huh.
Yeah. And it's like, that's why it's so sudden. It comes out of nowhere, because it's an external thought that she's acting on.
Huh. Side note, I would be very influenceable, so please never let me get anywhere near a cult. I'm just saying.
Oh dear. We might need to get you out of that country then, because I have bad news about who's running the country right now. Yeah, that's so funny. But yeah, I agree with Pat. I think it's as straightforward as the prophet kind of puts that idea in her head, and she uncritically engages with it because it makes her the center of the story. And just by definition, and this is something that's really interesting to me, just definitionally, by putting her into this other social group, based on intrinsic qualities that can't be changed, she becomes special, like unchangeably special in her own mind. The fact that she is post-pan is like inherent to her, like, if we talk about materialism, like that's literally just like a fact of like the material universe for her. And Kirsten can't change the fact that she was born before the pandemic. And so it's a really efficient way of producing a social exclusion, because it's a social exclusion based on something that you can't change, right? Something that can't be changed. It's like that Zimbardo, that terrible Stanford prison experiment that had. He turned out to be a really bad dude anyway, by the way. But that's a whole story for another time. But it's like that idea of like if you define an in-group as like people with one color eyes, like blue eyes, and then people with green eyes are a different social class. It's like, well, you can't change the color of your eyes. That's just like a physical, material fact about reality. And that's what the prophet is using to draw this division and to produce this artificial division. And to say that just by definition, Alex should be more special and is more special, and should therefore be treated that way.
It's interesting to know that there's 2 examples of her being like ordained or something, because she's the one person that walks through the minefield twice and is fine.
Yeah.
We don't see anyone else do
true.
it. It's like just her.
I'm not convinced there is mines.
Neither am I.
Didn't see anyone blow up.
Neither am I. Well, we see something blow up at the end, Pat. Let me tell you.
Oh, actually, yeah, that's, you know what? I erased that from my mind. Yes, that did happen.
Just because you don't see the explosion. Yeah, that's very funny. Right, let me move us through a little bit of material here. So we go back to Miranda at the end of the world. Her boss, Leon, calls her, and she gets, like, the world is ending speech. And we get a few pretty haunting, familiar scenes, I think, for a lot of us from the pandemic. Like, there's this moment where the pitch is cancelled or is delayed or whatever. And the woman just, like, someone walks up and hands her a mask, and then she just leaves without saying anything. And I was like, ooh, that's too real. That's too real. And Miranda is going to leave the hotel. Leon's organized a boat for her. And we get another quote from Station 11 as she is escaping the hotel, where the line we get
You
is...
know your endpoint when you reach it. In the early days, before their home is broken, they hardly noticed me. It was better to not be noticed. It is better to not be noticed.
Which is interesting. You know, a bit more of the story of Station 11 is maybe what we're getting there. It seems like this narrator, this Dr. 11 character that's like the main guy, it seems like maybe he used to just be a nobody, but since the space station's broken, he's become a focal point for, you know, or he's being noticed, whatever that means.
This astronaut figure kind of reminds me of like Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen.
Mm-hmm.
Is like his desire is to be like just disassociated and be left alone in space.
It's like
So,
everyone just leave me the
yeah.
fuck alone, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does a bit. And you're also saying that because he's blue, Pat. I know your fucking brain.
Is he blue?
Yeah. He's like
An
a dark.
astronaut?
He's like a navy blue, I feel.
Is he? I feel like he's like gold, like black and gold.
What?
What?
But also, I'm very unobservant. I could be I could be wrong.
What are you talking about? He's
I
fully
mean, bright
blue,
blue,
dude.
black and gold.
Yeah.
Is
yeah,
he?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Well, at least in the comic pages, he is. I don't know about the real physical.
Yeah,
guy.
when he shows up at the door at the end, I feel like he's not blue there.
Okay. Well, agree to disagree. This is going to be one of those internet memes where it's like, is the astronaut blue or is he black?
yeah, I know, it's literally that dress.
Be that dress.
Also, just before when you were saying that the too real part about the pandemic, the too real part that hit me was when she goes back to the hotel and she's like, "Are there less people here?" And
Dude,
it's like,
yeah.
do you remember that part in the pandemic where everyone was unsure, like if they should like be going out or if they should be just continue, doing what they were doing. And yeah, there was like a period of like a week where, people were just like, oh, like what's going on? Half people are staying inside, half the people are just going about their business.
I vividly remember going to work. It was on a Friday afternoon and it had been someone's birthday. And a bunch of people, like the office was like half empty. And I remember all of us being like, should we be here? And then like going home and like just walking through the university and like there was about like 70% less people and like getting on the bus at like 4 p.m. on a Friday and it should have been packed and it was like basically empty. And I was like, this doesn't feel. This has gone from like, oh, there's this thing in China to like, this became very real very quickly. Yeah, that's definitely a vibe.
But I'm curious if you had been trying to sign in for a meeting, and the person is handing a full-on like gas mask and puts it on and walks away, what are you doing?
It's a good point.
Because Miranda went shopping or something. I'm like, red flag, girl. Like, that's not a good sign. Don't ignore it.
Yeah. But then also, to be fair and to be balanced to Miranda, it is Asia where like they have much better hygiene with that stuff. Like masks and stuff are just like super common in Asian countries anyway, outside of like before 2020.
Yeah, pre-pandemic.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't see anyone with that mask specifically, but yeah.
Fucking Doctor Who ass looking gas mask.
Yeah, I know.
A human.
I love how like ready she was to like the counter lady. She was just prepared. Like as soon as she got that mask, all right,
She's
I'm
gone.
out in the middle of this conversation.
I like that she goes to the front desk to get this package or whatever, and there's like a dish, like a dinner, like a I don't know what you call it. It's like a,
Like a crock
casserole.
pot.
Crock pot?
Yeah, crock pot. Yeah, casserole dish or something. And I don't know why. In my brain, I've edited the contents of that to be a handgun. In my memory, it's always been a gun. And let me tell you guys, it's not a gun in the book either. I checked. So I don't know what the fuck
Wow.
I thought.
She gets a weapon. She gets a butterfly knife. So
I
maybe,
know.
maybe that's why.
Which is
Well,
not
it is-
germane to anything.
That's a very like secret agent thing. For like James Bond would definitely have that scene, so I could see that happening in some other film.
Yeah, in an episode of Archer, I'm sure the gun would be in the dish, but also so would the casserole.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
you'd have a wet gun.
bottle of whiskey or something like that too.
Yeah, exactly.
And he'd ignore the food and just have the drink.
It's full of punch. So the big thing here is that she's gonna go get on this boat, and it's as she's going there that she says something. Leon on the phone is like, you'll be at sea for a year, and then we get the flashback or the slide. Flashback's really the wrong way to talk about this, but we then slide back to a previous moment, where this is the detail I was talking about before that I wanted to bring up, which is, it's like the day after, and Miranda and Arthur are like talking or whatever and like connecting, and they both grew up visiting the same island, and this is one of those like weird details where Emily St. John Mandel grew up on Denman Island, so she's like a writer that is very interested in these small Canadian islands, and one of the follow-up books to Station 11, Glass Hotel, centers on a hotel that is in like it is located in a remote Canadian island, and that hotel also shows up in Sea of Tranquility, which is the sequel also to Station 11, and that island gets referenced here as the island where Arthur and Miranda both visited as kids. In the book, I believe they were both born there, but I think here we get visited rather than born. It's the details.
Am I misremembering, or was it the island in the Gulf of Mexico?
It might be. It could
It's called
be.
the Gulf of America.
Yeah, my partner made that comment when she saw that.
God damn it. Yeah, I think that's right. I don't think it's a Canadian island they visited. I think it's something in Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, but also isn't Arthur? He's speaking Spanish, is he not?
When?
Am I misremembering that as well?
What?
Is he not? I thought he's
No.
speaking Spanish.
Nah, bro.
Okay.
No, and he's on the phone and he's talking another language, and maybe it was Spanish. I can't remember.
I think it's French because he's Canadian.
Well, yeah,
Oh, no,
like
it is Spanish. No, you're right. It is Spanish.
yeah.
Yeah. Because he's talking about
yeah.
Miranda in Spanish to someone else, and he's basically saying like, it'd be easier on her if we get married or something. Like, it'd be more convenient for her. They'll treat. Oh,
I think he might be on the. I think he might be on the wrong end of the North America.
Yeah. Whoops. That's a classic David mistake. So as she's getting on the boat, Arthur manages to get through to her, and we see the other side of the conversation that was the first scene we had with Clark, where he's calling Miranda to tell her that Arthur has died. And I'm curious what you guys make of this, like, thing that happens, which is she falls down the ramp, and then proceeds to not get on the boat, and go back to the hotel. We can then talk about the other, the argument and then the marriage and all that stuff. But, like, what's going on? Why did she go back to the hotel? What's happening here?
What? Because she loses her keys. Right?
What?
Wait, really?
I thought she lost something in the water, and either it was what she needed to do to get on the boat, or she literally had a concussion and didn't know what was happening because she had like a gash on her forehead. But yeah, I was confused by it too.
Yeah, it's the boat keys that go in the water, so she
Oh.
just physically can't. Yeah, that's what happens.
Okay. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, right? Like,
talking about
very
materialism.
unlucky.
Yikes. Turns out the world is reducible to a series of massy objects that exert and produce ideology. In this case, keys killed her. Whoops.
And it's such a good direction to like take this story. Like, I don't know, it's like totally what you'd expect, like just for her to like totally a natural progression of the story that you'd expect for her to get on the boat, you know, get onto the bigger boat, and then, you know, prepare for her life on the prepare for the next year of her life on this boat kind of thing. But no, like the whole episode, like sort of like at least in this time, the whole sequence leads up to this escape plan, and then it ends up just like she ends up flubbing it, and she just has to she just goes back to the hotel. It's so unconventional, like, and then you think you're never gonna see that gym guy again, but like you do, and
Yeah, he's
it's
back.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he turns out to be less of a schmuck than we maybe thought, and seems like an actually nice guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that also struck me. Like because I thought that was the last thing she was going to say to him. Hey, your pitch is weak. You should work on it. And then he takes it in stride. He goes, "Okay, thank you for your honesty. Like, I'll work on it." It's like,
Yeah.
oh man, like I feel really bad for this guy now. But yeah.
It is such a funny thing because it's like, if you think about it, Clark kind of kills her a little bit. Like, it's sort of Clark's fault that she dies because of the timing of this phone call. But then that's also why when she goes back to the hotel and she's thinking about Arthur, this is what I meant by the what I was talking about last episode. This story doing like emotional and idea handoffs that motivate scene changes rather than causal things, right? It's not that there's a conflict or a causal thing that makes us go back to this conversation where Arthur and Miranda were having this fight. It's the fact that she hears about Arthur's death and starts to reflect on her life, knowing that she's going to die. That's what brings us into the past again, where we go to what you were saying, Pat, where he's talking Spanish. And then we get the iconic Arthur Leander line that is just an absolute all-timer. His only good contribution to the English language, which is, "I don't want to live the wrong life and then die." As they have this argument, because he's always away filming and she's always away because of her job. And we can then talk about this disastrous dinner party in a second. But yeah, that is unfortunate for Miranda, to say the least.
Okay. Work with me here. I want to see if this is a thing or not. So in the first episode, Jeevan like totally panics and loses control of himself and bolts off of the train, so they get off way too early, and then that ends up like being a good thing later on. And now we have something sort of similar where Miranda totally loses control of herself and drops the keys and can't escape, and now all these bad things happen. So, and there's more examples throughout that I'm not thinking of, but you've got two examples of them not being in control of themselves, and it leads to either, you know, better things or worse things. And I don't know if that's like intentional or what.
I mean, I remember damage and then escape, right? Like, that's your damage, and then, like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, It's still kind of of
Well,
a piece.
no, I was like, I was about to say, I remember damage too, but you can't just use that as a response, David. I need more. That was my thought.
That's funny. Good question. Look, I mean, I think that this story is interested in how different people react to the end of civilization, right? And the end of their life, and what makes up a life, and what defines a life, and how we understand our lives, and how we produce meaning, and how we grieve our own lives even as we live our own lives, right? I don't want to live the wrong life and then die. Arthur sort of, calls after her in this just wet kind of facile argument. He's yelling this at her while he's having an affair with this co-star. I think it's difficult for me to give you a clear answer on how the comparison of Jeevan and his panic at the end of the world and Miranda's flub, if we could call it that, with the boat keys, I think your mileage is so going to vary on what you can do with that, and how you end up feeling about that will probably change as the show keeps going, because spoilers, but like, we're going to be seeing how other people react to the end of the world also. We don't get to see Arthur react to the end of the world because he dies on stage. We've seen how Jeevan and Kirsten reacted to it. We saw how Frank reacted to it. I just think that's like a big question this story has, that I'm not sure that it's ever going to square the circle on what you're supposed to think about it, other than it's going, here is the range of human experience as grief hits you like a sledgehammer. It is going to produce different things in different moments for different people that have, many varied outcomes, is my feeling. And that the breadth of human experience is such that you never know how something's going to hit you until it does, type of thing. Was that sufficient? Was that better than I remember damage? You happy?
I don't know. Part of me just wants to start answering questions with, I remember damage.
Yeah, it will. It'll make you seem really cool and thoughtful, but it will get really annoying really quickly. Is my only concern.
Well, you just described me though, so
just watch the next week of all of our group chats. Darth just to every comment that I write, just replying, "I remember damage." It's like, guys, what happened to the Zero Indent review? Why don't you guys do that podcast anymore? This fucking guy.
Darth Flanderized himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that absolutely is something that Darth would do. You shouldn't give him ideas. Okay. So, shall I set up the dinner party? Or do you guys have anything else there before we talk about Arthur and Miranda and Clark again?
No.
I mean, the only other thing was I was going to ask if you guys had ever watched Veep. It's Veep, Veep.
Yeah, no.
But he's in it. So it's Veep as in like Vice President of the United States, and I'm blanking on her name, but from Seinfeld.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah, Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, so she's like the vice president, and it's a fantastic show because it's also very realistic about how like corrupt everything can be, and how like everything's barely held together with string and tape and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And David would probably love it. Okay, and it's very vulgar.
Excellent. Wow, how dare you? Well, he'll drive by, is it?
But the funny thing is, like, he's in it. Whatever his name was, the tall dude, and it's like so close to his character. So I'm like, is he typecast, or is this just like he likes playing these characters? Because he'll have moments of like actual like human compassion, and then he'll like just be like back to work and cursing you out, and that's what I kept expecting to happen when they were hugging, because like that's in the show, like that's when he would immediately been like, so we gonna do it?
I see. He might just be typecast. Yeah, I think. But that is actually a very sweet moment of like, it's just like, well, like, we're gonna fucking die. Like, it might be worth having a small moment of human connection.
Yeah.
You know. And I also really like the detail that he's from the parent company as well. There's something very cynical about the fact that she, like, her company got acquired, and she's the one that's been sent by Leon to go nail this thing because the guy they've sent from the parent company doesn't have the juice, you know. It's a keen understanding of enterprise business.
The only other thing that was odd to me was just the, like, you have to get on the boat to survive. Like, that idea was really odd because you could survive anywhere. And, like, at the end of it, she, like, gets duct tape and tries to seal herself in her room, and she gets, like, a bottle of water and sort of prepares. But it's also like she's kind of gave up because the boat was the only option, which also makes it sound like America is the only option.
Yeah, well, she wants to get home, right? And the only way to do that is by boat. I think is
yeah,
the
but home's
implication.
about to die. So, like, what's like?
I characters don't always make logical decisions, Darth. This seems sensible.
No,
to
don't
me.
tell me that.
This seems like a sensible reaction to the end of the world, which is get the fuck out of Malaysia.
Yeah.
You know. Also, at sea, that's probably a really safe place to be during a pandemic. So, like, that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah,
I remember
I actually
28
loved that.
weeks later. Yeah.
I loved the idea that like, assuming that Liana had, like, planned that out, and he was like, okay, so we've got this, like, he if they were rich enough, he could have been like, I bought you a private plane, get to the airport, but this was theoretically safer because the virus will be dead by the time the boat gets there, right? But with the airplane, that wouldn't have been the case. And then, like, if there's anyone who's sick on the boat, you just, like, chunk them overboard, right? So
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, you could do that. But I mean, yes. And also, it's so funny because last episode I was like, the worst place to be during the pandemic would be on a plane. Remember I said that. That should be one of those, like, Patrick will remember this, tags pop up again, because that is, like, an important thing the show is thinking about is what does the airplane do for us, right? I don't think it's a surprise or a coincidence that we get that plane crashing when Jeevan and Kirsten get to Frank's apartment, and that we know Clark is getting on a flight to go to Arthur's funeral. So, like, the plane is technology is a thing that, will be thought about to an extent. And that is something the show is interested in the same way it's interested in phones and the internet as objects that exert ideology. All right, let me set up the dinner party. So Arthur has his movie star friends over, and they all seem like vapid assholes except for Clark. And Clark and Miranda clearly get along quite well, which is nice. And Miranda is... It's interesting. So we've got Elizabeth, who is Arthur's co-star, and she's sitting next to Arthur at the head of the table. Miranda's, like, further down across from Clark, and they sort of get to talking about Miranda's art, and, they're like, oh, well, when it's finished, you're going to show people. And she's like, no, like, it's just something I like to do. The point of it is the art is the point. It doesn't actually matter if anyone sees it. And they just can't even engage with this as a concept. And then one of the other dinner guests starts telling this story of, like, I went and did this thing and, like, completely changed my life and, whatever. And then Clark has a great line where he says, you seem to get reborn almost every time you leave the house, which is extremely great. And there's something really insidious that Arthur reveals. So we're pretty sure at this point, just based on body language, that he and Elizabeth are having an affair. But something that I think this does a good job of is communicating how much empathy Miranda seems to have for Elizabeth, despite this fact. And then we get the reveal that Arthur has shown Elizabeth Miranda's work, apparently without her consent, seemingly. And she throws... It's super interesting. So she throws a line back in Arthur's face before she she storms out, and it's a line from the book. And she says, "I stood looking over the damage, trying to remember the sweetness of life on Earth. I was late or you were early. Either one. Same mission. Burn every parasite motherfucker alive." And then she, like, tips her wine on the table and goes outside. And yeah, it's very confusing.
The line was from one of his. It was from one of his movies, because then he says in a second, "I thought you didn't watch any of my films."
Yes.
Yeah, so supposedly the guy sitting to the left of Arthur is like the screenwriter for the movie that he starred in. Or I don't know, maybe he's the author of the book that it was adapted from or something like that. But yeah, he's
Right.
like, yeah, that's a line from what I wrote. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I see. That makes sense. I mean, it's a pretty rough moment. And so she goes outside, and Clark goes out to basically, like, comfort her, I guess, or to escape the party and have a cigarette, which is honestly fair. These people seem like the worst.
Yeah, she is having a bit of a sulk, but like understandable given that like that particular company, like that doesn't seem like it's not her people, obviously.
Yeah.
And she's given off like very like kind of introvert vibes during this sequence, and just what I was saying earlier about like just the absolute like I don't know kinesis of this episode. Like there's just so many like moments, like notable moments of awkwardness, of tension, between people, far more than the last two episodes. And then I feel like that it really puts you in the mood that Miranda probably has a lot of the time of her wanting to just be isolated and to work on her work, in sort of in a meditative state. I feel like it builds up to an understanding of where Miranda is coming from. Of like, it's just too much. She can't deal with it. Like, she just wants some peace and quiet.
Yeah, it's that. What did she say? Like, I'm at my best when I'm escaping. Like, yeah, and I think also like the thing that's interesting to me is like that she and Clark seem to have slightly different perspectives on the world, because when they're having this little conversation outside and he kind of is like, yeah, like, she asks how long it's been going on, like the affair, and he tells her when she asks him directly, and then they're talking about like the comic and Leander's acting, and Clark says it's just work, it's the thing you do, it's not life. And I think for Clark at this moment he believes that, and we will find out why, I promise. Clark's such an interesting character. And, this is also one of the ideas in Mandel's novels, and like a central thing she's trying to figure out with her books is whether or not work and art can be the same thing, and whether or not one, the other, or both can produce meaning, and whether that's sufficient or not. There's an idea that she has in like throughout her body of work that I think is really present in this story, which is, as we work, our work makes us, and we make our work and it changes us, and we exert pressure and ideology on our work, and our work exerts pressure and ideology on us. And it's like one of the central tenets of art is that there's a friction to making things, and that friction is like a good, productive, entropic thing that is like important and valuable, and that like doing the thing is the thing that matters, and doing the thing makes the thing and produces more tension with reality and produces more meaning. But it's also incredibly mundane, and it's not some great cosmic spiritual revelation. It's simple. It's sitting down and drawing the comic book in the pool shed it's reading a book and connecting to it. There's something delightfully mundane about how Mandel tries to talk and write her way into explorations of like what it means to live, and what it means to have a life that is well lived, and how different people have different ways of understanding when their life has been well lived and hasn't been well lived. And you know, Miranda's line from the comic then is she has this line afterwards where it's, to be loved is a calamity for someone with your job. You have work to do. Work. Love will try to see the words before it finished. Love makes work impossible. Survival is insufficient. I don't want to live the wrong life and then die. I am at my best when I'm escaping. Survival is insufficient is such a I think if you were to boil down Emily St. John Mandel's body of work as an artist, that sentence, survival is insufficient, I think encapsulates the thing she is trying to say. And I think the show and this moment in this episode does a really good job of giving us access to Miranda and her interiority, and showing us that even Clark, the one person in this world that she has a closeness with, doesn't really understand where she's coming from at like a fundamental level. They have a lot more in common. They're a lot more each other's people, but she is still alone and she is still by herself. And that this relationship has done something that is getting in the way, right? Love makes work impossible, right? That's a really interesting line. Like, love makes work impossible. Survival is insufficient. And then she quotes Arthur in the comic, and she says, I don't want to live the wrong life and then die. I'm at my best when I'm escaping. It's very evocative.
I feel like sorry, what's the author's name? Emily
St. John Mandel.
Emily St. John Mandel. I feel like perhaps she's thinking about her art through Miranda. Like maybe Miranda's a bit of a mouthpiece for her. Specifically about her pretensions about making art, about, you know, survival is not enough. Making art is a way to transcend survival. You know, it's something more, and that is, you see that in the character of Miranda. She takes the art, the art of it, like, so seriously, in comparison to Arthur and his friends who do make art, but they're not serious about it, kind of thing. And yet, like, they seem to be happier for it, whereas like Miranda is like, you know, like sullen and pensive and serious, and you know, at this moment she's quite miserable, kind of thing. Like, you know, is art the answer to like survival, like, you know, to achieve more and to, I don't know, to live better? Or is it better to, you know, just be more casual about it, like Arthur and his friends, and potentially just live more in the moment or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah. Darth? Thoughts, feelings, vibes? Because I imagine this is one of those, like, what do you call it? There's a very feelings-based thing that I think, like, that different people will have different takeaways on what to make of this sequence, I guess.
The the blonde that he's cheating with, was her name Elizabeth?
Yeah.
I say she was interesting. The way that she is written is interesting, because it's like she doesn't perceive that she's doing anything wrong to hurt Miranda, but by cheating with Miranda's husband. There's a scene, I think it's earlier, it could be later, I don't know where the time goes, but she and Miranda meet at some event, and she comes up to her and says, I don't know if you've seen what the tabloids are saying, but we're not sleeping together. We're not having an affair. I just wanted you to know so you wouldn't, be all up in your head about it. And then at this dinner party, she's Elizabeth is like honestly complimenting Miranda on her art, and she's like actually being a fan of Miranda while sleeping with her husband. So is the story like pointing out that like this character doesn't see this act as evil? Is this okay because the marriage is like fake, or the marriage doesn't exist anymore? I don't really know where to go with that. I just thought that was interesting.
I don't think it's any one thing.
I think there's perhaps some nuance with this like affair. Like it kind of maybe seems like they're not like sleeping together, but they're like having an emotional intimacy that is like, like basically an affair kind of thing. And therefore like it, in Elizabeth's mind, like there's some complicated reasonings going on as to like how she can, be seemingly like genuinely compliment Miranda's work while also being too close to Arthur.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it, because it's like there's something about Elizabeth that is like she's quite empathetic to Miranda. I'm trying to remember if we get more of this evening, and I know we do in the book, I don't think we do in the show, but it's also just a really like, don't invite the woman that you're sleeping with to dinner with your wife. Maybe that seems like a real like Arthur Leander, it would never occur to him that might be a bad thing to do type of thing.
She also stays there after the party. Like Elizabeth wakes up on the couch and sees the pool house on fire. So, I mean, maybe she just got like drunk and fell asleep on the couch,
drunk.
But either way,
okay. She got too drunk. In the book, when she's drunk, she comes into the pool house. It's a study upstairs in the book, but she comes in to look at the artwork with Miranda, and they have like this really touching conversation. And then she goes back downstairs and falls asleep again because she's drunk. Elizabeth's a great character. Really great, awful dinner party. Just the most cursed vibes. Miranda leaves. We should say that. So she burns down the pool house, which has all the Station 11 artwork in it, and she basically walks out of Arthur's life. Done. She just quits. What's the thing that she said? Cut and run. That feeling.
She says, "I'm leaving you, and the pool house is on fire."
It's so good. Yeah. No, she says your pool house is on fire. It's very good. That's a great way to end a relationship. Talk about getting the last word.
That is not him promoting the idea of arson. I just want to put that out there. Disclaimer.
Listen, it's fine. It's pool house. Whatever. Don't burn. Don't do arson. Don't do arson. But if you say that enough, it sounds like it's like I'm like, don't do arson. Don't do it. Okay, so I want to talk very quickly about the end of this episode, and then we can take a quick break. So we go from. Have you guys got anything else on the dinner party?
I mean, there's probably more that could be unpacked with like all the different people we're talking about, like the places they visited and stuff like that, and like so much of it was superficial. But I don't know if any of that plays into like other stuff throughout the show or not.
If it comes up again, I'll bring it back because I think there's probably a few. There are probably a few things. I think the place of travel is quite central. But yeah, outside of that, I'm not sure if there's anything that's worth touching on in too much detail. Obviously, Miranda ends up in Malaysia where she dies. She travels a lot for work because of her job. Arthur travels a lot for his job. But that's probably the thing to think about, right? Is they travel for work, and then these other people at the dinner table are doing tourism and stuff. Like at one point, someone's talking about Fiji, and that it changed their life. And then someone's talking about Prague. There's some stuff there that's, I think, thinking about what travel and privilege do to you, and what it means to be like a real person, like what Patrick was talking about before, with like Miranda being a bit of a mouthpiece for Mandel in some ways. Yeah.
It's also worth pointing out that at the end of episode 3, Miranda is still alive.
Mm-hmm. Oh, true. Yeah, I have kept implying that she dies, but I mean, that's a good point. Well, actually, this is a good opportunity. Let me quickly talk us through the end of the pitch meeting, and then we can talk about the way the episode ends, because I'm curious to see what you guys think happens to Miranda.
Love makes work impossible. Survival is insufficient. I don't want to live the wrong life and then die. I am at my best when I'm escaping.
So they end up giving that pitch despite the world ending. The pitch is back on, I guess, because there's nothing else to do. And they're doing the pitch while drinking, which is very funny to me. They've got literally like she's got a cocktail and a beer. Absolute king shit. She says, "You all seem to know the world is coming to an end, so it's a good reminder that nothing we have done or do matters at all. But it does. It does. The man I loved died last night. The man I loved died last night, and I went to work. The man I loved died last night, and I went to work instead. And I'm here with you, and you don't matter at all, Mr. Huang. Your company is falling into the sea. So I have to ask, why wasn't I at that play? Why wasn't I with my love when he died?" I want to put this in direct conversation with Arthur's quote, where he says, "It's just work. It's the thing you do. It's not life."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know?
I don't want to give her too much credibility here because she broke up with him. Like,
he was having an affair with her. You can still, okay,
Yeah, well-
you can love somebody. You can spend the rest of your life still knowing in your heart of hearts that you love that person and never be able to be with them because of how they treat you.
yeah, but like, if she had been there, like this trip wasn't for another week, would she have gone to the play? She just got cheated on and broke up with him. Would she have gone to his play? Probably not.
I think that was probably a while ago, to be fair. Like,
Yeah.
that would have been like 10 or
Like-
15 years.
The most recent scene is them reconnecting, right, in Arthur's apartment,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Oh yeah. The time skip got
And-
me.
Yeah.
and then
forgot.
he wants her to stay, and she's like, "I can't, but I will come back," kind of thing, like implying like they're gonna start reconnecting. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's
yeah.
he's had kids since they saw each other. And he was married to Elizabeth and divorced her and has 2 kids with her that are in, where are they? Somewhere, some country that maybe go, huh? I can't remember what it was. Was it like Afghanistan or something? It was somewhere weird. Like it was somewhere very
Really? Did they-
specific.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. I don't remember.
I also don't remember the fact that they were divorced. I just heard the bit about his kid.
They definitely are. I don't know if that's like,
Well, yeah.
I'm not sure if that's knowledge I'm bringing to it, but they are 100% divorced. Because he goes, "Oh, maybe we should get a drink or whatever before she leaves." You know?
Yeah. Well, he's a scoundrel. He cheated once. Why not again?
That's a good point. Oh, good point,
So
Patrick.
that's-
Yeah. What a dog.
Yeah. Right.
Yes. That is the scene where we see again her it's from a different perspective of her giving him the comic book, right? So
Yep.
is that the same scene where she like pulls out a second one like for his kid or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
To send him one. That is where we get the detail. Yes, you've done well to pick up on that. Yeah, so yes, this is a really important detail, isn't it? Because she goes, "Oh, I've got, send this one to your kid, and your kid is send him that one. Tyler, here you go. I've got it. I found the dialogue." So it's you started over, is what she says, and he says Tyler would love this. My son with Elizabeth. Send him that one. I have more. Referring to Station 11.
The prophet, his son. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness me.
But that brought up so many other questions for me because part of the whole prophecy thing to me was centered around the fact that there was only one book in existence, and so anyone else knowing these quotes and everything couldn't happen because there's only one book in existence. Now we know that there's multiple copies floating around, so it changes. I mean, maybe not in a bad way, but it changes that kind of like supernatural aspect of it. The other part that I thought was more interesting was that she said at that dinner table, "I don't care if anyone ever sees it. I'm not making it for other people." But now she's printing out copies and giving it to other people. So what is this? What is this saying? Is she supposed to be like a different person now that she's divorced from Arthur? Does she now care about capitalism and she's trying to get the word out so she could sell this thing? Like, why is this complete 180 happened?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Correct. That's correct. Yes. That is a correct thought to have had. I will let you determine that on your own, about why she might be giving these books to people. But yeah, in theory, there are multiple copies around. That's a thing to know. That's true. Something else I did want to talk about before we touch on the pitch, just on the Arthur stuff, is she's thinking about how close she is to having stayed for dinner with Arthur, and how small that choice is, that she's like, no, I'm gonna go and do my job. When she's saying at the pitch meeting, like, why wasn't I with my love when he died, etc. I just think it reflects this idea that this story has about life, which is like, the real tragedy of life is that life is essentially wasted in pursuit of things you do when you think that your life is going to keep going. Like, when you think that life is just going to keep happening, that's when you tend to waste your life. And it's only when it all suddenly goes away that you go like, oh fuck, like, I don't want to live the wrong life and then die. Which is quite a mundane observation, but I think probably just relevant to her and Arthur's relationship, where it's clear that she never stopped loving him, even though they both had that sense that this thing was temporary, and how small of a choice it is that sees her potentially dying in this hotel room in Malaysia instead of spending more time with him or having stayed there or whatever the sliding doors universe scenario is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I also want to say that I think that there's a anti-David argument here, which is that, like, the story is saying that, like, capitalism is the reason that she, that is the cause of why she wasn't with Arthur. But she could have gone to the grocery store when he had a heart attack. Like, him, the way that he died and her not being there, it didn't have to be part of capitalism's fault because of the way that he died was just so natural, I guess. I don't know if that explanation makes sense at all.
I mean, I haven't yet leveled the argument that that she I haven't yet made the argument that she isn't there because of capitalism. I think work is more fundamental as a concept. Like, I understand what you're saying.
I arrived there on my own, surprisingly.
Shocking. No, I think in this story so far, work is a much more elemental thing, and it's like a element that is put next to the truth that is art. There's work and then there's art, and like one of them is real and one of them is not real. It's it's what Arthur says. It's just work. It's the thing you do. It's not life. And so when she's saying that, like, when my love was dying, I was at work, she's saying, like, I was doing work instead of life, instead of the thing I'm supposed to be doing. I don't want to live the wrong life and then die, right? And she feels in this moment that, like, she fucked up. Like, she should have stayed and had dinner with him and seen the play. There's no way of knowing that this is what would have happened, right? But because that's the tragedy of life. And that's the tragedy of life being wasted because you do things that you think you're supposed to do because you don't realize that it is slipping away. Like, as it's like we were talking about last episode. As you live your life, you have to grieve for your life at the same time, because how else can you make the right choices? And how else do you know what a right choice even is?
Well, it's funny how, like, that this episode has that message, but, like, Jeevan doesn't seem any more content for not working, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But he also doesn't.
He's got a website.
Oh my god, yeah. But he doesn't do anything. Like, he doesn't produce art. He's seemingly, his brother's like a novelist or whatever. Yeah. He just doesn't have he hasn't figured out what he wants to be when he grows up. You know?
Yeah. This is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to talk about her speech at the meeting. It's the way she repeats that line a few times. It's very Shakespearean. I thought it was kind of like a nice bookend to this episode that was so much about Shakespeare. Yeah, she gives like this very Shakespearean tragic sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of a soliloquy, and I like it. And then she's like, Jim? Like, she hands off to him to do his half of the pitch, which is extremely funny. Especially tragic.
He's just panicking. I
know,
that.
It's so funny. It's so good. He just doesn't know what to make of what's just happened. Yeah.
Especially because you remember the last thing she said to him was, your half is weak. So he spent literally hours redoing it.
I know. It's so funny. It's so good. Oh, man. God, this show. Man.
And she still, like, upstages him, in a sense.
Of course.
You know, like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Of course she does. It's great. It's also pretty funny that that she's basically like nothing. You know, it's a good reminder that nothing we have done or do matters at all. Then she goes, but it does. It does matter. And I think what she's saying there is like the work doesn't matter at all. We just think it does. It's everything else. It's life. It's art. Like, it's all these other big things that actually matter. In the middle of a work presentation. It's so good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's delightful. I'll probably just put the clip in.
The man I loved died last night. And the man I loved died last night, and I went to work. The man I loved died last night, and I went to work instead. And I'm here with you and you and you. You don't matter at all, Mr. Wang. Your company is falling into the sea, so I have to ask. Why wasn't I at that play? Why wasn't I with my love when he died?
We never got the resolution, right? As to whether or not they they won the bid or not.
No, we just don't know.
Because in my mind, like, because everyone else at that table, like she said, like, they all know that they're dying, and she gave like a decent speech, and then the other dude like gave his pitch, and they'd be like, sure, we'll sign the paper. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, in my mind, that's absolutely what happened.
Yeah, she won the bid just because they were like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She dropped the pretension.
Yeah, exactly.
It reminds me, the last episode of Mad Men I saw was the one where they're presenting to like the Japanese company, and Don pulls that stunt at the end where he's like, "Oh no, not playing your game," and then that's what wins him the contract. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, it is great.
It's
And
good,
just
so-
props to Miranda as well for learning Mandarin Chinese for this presentation. Like, fucking hell, it's not an easy task.
I also think that might just be because of her job, to be fair.
yeah.
All right. Last thing is the ending of this episode. So Miranda, we kind of follow her subjectivity as she's, taping up her room and she's talking to Leon on the phone. And he's clearly dying as well. He's coughing. And she's sealing everything up with tape. And then we get the words, her monologue from the comic book. As we sort of flash through her emotions, and we get her opening the door of the hotel room, and there's the spaceman. And she says, "I have a job to do. I still have a job to do. I have found you 9 times before, maybe 10, and I'll find you again. There is no rescue mission. We are safe." One question. What happens at the end of this episode? Do you know what I mean? Like, what happens? Right? This is what I meant when I was saying this show is really about feelings more than like resolving things like as puzzle pieces. This is trying to communicate a big feeling and like a complicated feeling, and then going, doesn't matter what physically happened. It's about this emotion in this moment of her grieving her life, and thinking through her life, and realizing that like this is it, basically.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm reminded of like Diane's like disposition toward life and art from BoJack Horseman, about how, basically, what's the point of having gone through all this trauma and life experience if I'm not gonna productively use that in my art, kind of thing. That your magnum opus or your art as the culmination of all the events in your life, sort of leading up to this, this work of art, kind of thing. Like that is true for Miranda. Like her seeing her character, hallucinating her character at the end of her life, I feel like is, neurons firing off, trying to produce meaning, kind of thing. Like that's how I take it. Yeah.
It could also very much be like an angel coming to take you to heaven at the end of your life kind of metaphor.
Oh yeah, I could see that. Or alternative reading, he's really there and he's gonna save her with his time machine.
Oh my goodness.
Or his portal machine.
Oh my goodness.
He pulls out the Rick and Morty portal gun. He's boop,
For a second, I thought it was going to be Jim coming to have some hanky-panky before they both die.
Yeah, I did too.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I could see that. I mean,
Because it was a connecting door
Jim.
to the next room, right? And she didn't tape it up.
it is also
and they looked like they were having a moment, like when they hugged before, like.
That's interesting. I didn't read it that way, but that's, you know what? Fair enough. What I like about this is no other show would do this. This is like one of the things I love about this show, and I think like broadly about Mandel's work, probably more Sea of Tranquility than Glass Hotel, but this is just the most me shit of all time, to be like, you spend the entire episode going through the big events of this person's life. She has all these big complicated thoughts about art, and at the very end of this episode, it doesn't give you an answer to what happened to Miranda. It goes, this is the way that Miranda feels in this moment, and it's climactic, and it's heartbreaking, and it's beautiful, and then she sees this character, and the last words we hear from her are, "We are safe," right? And then, like, just to say the thing, in the next episode, we're going to start with more lines from Station 11. We're going to see a cut of Miranda that cross-cuts and match cuts to Kirsten. There's something's happening here with Miranda and her legacy and her the way that her life ends. You know, this will mean something different to each person who watches this, I feel. You either you could come away being like, well, she wasted the end of her life, she should have been with Arthur. You go, well, no, like she finished her comic book, like she finished her magnum opus. That is what life is all about. Or no, the book has, like what you were saying, Pat, it's full of her trauma. She did the things she's supposed to do in her life, and that's the point. Or it's that the book survives her and is her legacy and helps inspire Kirsten to, you know, stay connected to her art and to pursue acting. There are so many ways to like read what this means that aren't just did she die or not, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
But I'm pretty sure she did. Just to be honest, I'm pretty sure she did.
Yeah. It kind of seems like she would have. Yeah.
Yeah. Not a lot of options because she's coughing at one point, isn't she?
Not
Oh, no.
that
Is
I
she?
remember.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I also like how much Leon cares about her. Like,
Yeah.
we just see him like what for the one scene at the beginning, and then he's like like a really important person in her life, it seems. And at the end, like he's just like he's only looking out for her. Like he's and then she lies to him about getting on the boat. Like it's just really like sort of bittersweet.
Oh, the lie,
detail.
dude. It's heartbreaking. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
I guess they've worked together for
that-
20 years, right?
Remember that was the recurring theme we had talked about before of lying to try to make someone to ease their pain or whatever. And that's yet another example.
Yeah, she says, I'm aboard the Robespierre. He says, I knew you were a survivor. And she says, you got me here. And that's when he starts coughing. Which is, yeah, it's pretty rough. Yeah, you're right. There is something really sweet about their relationship. And there is what's interesting is I think they make it a lot more warm than how I remember it in the books. One of the adaptational choices that I think is quite canny is we actually spend a lot of time with Miranda at work, working for Leon in the books, and it's a really boring job because he's always traveling places, and she has all of this free time, and she has nothing to do, and so she sits there and she works on Station 11 at this job. And she eventually, in the book, credits Leon and this really boring admin job with giving her the time to finish the book. That's obviously excised here, but like, that's the kind of adaptational change that I think is really, really clever. Is going, okay, but actually, what if they had this warmth to them and they were actually really close and they really trusted each other, and he wasn't like a distant, jet-setting CEO type. It's a nice change to me.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing is she doesn't need to have that job. Wait, did she get the job after she broke up with Arthur?
We don't know. We're not sure.
Because theoretically she was, dating a rich actor. She wouldn't need to have a job and she could just work on the book 100% of her time.
You know what? She got the job beforehand because when they first meet, he says, you're an artist. She says, I'm in logistics.
Yeah.
And they get into an argument later about her always being away for work. Because I think what happens is she becomes basically an executive. That's why she's always flying when she's with Arthur. And she starts as like a low-level admin, basically.
Yeah. And that contributes to their marriage falling apart because she's traveling so much. Opposed to her... Yeah, opposed to in the book, her boss doing all the traveling and her just sitting there working on the book. So she does
eventually become an executive and still do the same traveling in the book. It's just we get a lot more of the time in between. But the emphasis, you're 100% right. The emphasis is far less on the fact that her flying or not being home is the problem. It's far more that this is clearly not the first affair that he's had. It's sort of the way the book squares that circle. All right. That was episode 3. Good stuff. We are going to take a quick break, and we will be back to talk about episode 4 momentarily, which I'm very excited about because this is an absolute banger of an episode. Very plot-heavy one, I feel. Yeah? All right. We'll be right back.
after these messages from your sponsor.
This post-apocalypse unit is sponsored by the Maynard Trigg series. You can find these books at underink.press. They are my science fantasy coming-of-age novels. If you like post-apocalypse fiction, I guarantee you'll like these novels. They take place in a dying world far above the earth in the skies. They are fantasy novels. They are mystery novels. They are coming-of-age. If you enjoy the things we talk about and the way we talk about them, I guarantee you'll like these novels. Use code REVIEW10 at checkout. That's REVIEW10 at checkout for 10% off the original hardback of the first novel. That's this one right here. Once again, REVIEW10 at underink.press to grab your copy of the first Maynard Trigg book today. Welcome back. We are talking about episode 4, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Aren't Dead, named after the film and or play. This episode was written by Helen Shaver. Sorry, directed by Helen Shaver, written by Nick Hughes. Patrick, could we please hear the very brief summary?
In the now, we learn that the stranger from the last episode is called David, which, in this summary's opinion, is a bit rude, frankly. Kirsten manipulates Sarah to take the symphony off course to visit Pingtree, where Sarah's ex, Gil, the previous director of the symphony, lives with his new wife. Kirsten has designs on confirming her suspicion that the Prophet has read Station 11. She hid the comic in Gil's office in Pingtree. The symphony finds themselves trapped in the middle of a minefield as they enter Pingtree. Gil reveals the children of Pingtree were lured away by the Prophet. Alex also reveals she told the Prophet she would leave the symphony, a revelation that cannot be recalled. They perform a modernized Shakespeare as we see glimpses of Kirsten raising Alex, and the acting becomes a little too real. The rift between the two grows as we see a similar rift between Kirsten and Jeevan in the years after the collapse. Alex leaves the symphony on horseback. Kirsten discovers a child wearing a mine, and the children hug Gil, destroying the resort.
Interesting episode of television. Lots of plot stuff. It really feels like they were like, oh, wait, shit, what's the story again? Well, I thought the opening of this episode was like so beautiful. You get this this like tinkling piano. You're looking on the snow. You get this sort of scraping of a knife being sharpened to the music. And then we get more of the comic book lines as we cross-cut Miranda and Kirsten. And then, yeah, we get Alex revealing that the stranger's name was David. And I was like, fuck you. That's not fair. That's not cool, guys. Don't be like that. Yeah. And then obviously the kind of big plot elements that get elided there is... I really think there's three big things to talk through here. There's the Alex and Kirsten relationship. There's the Traveling Symphony and Sarah and Gil. And then there's, probably the plot kind of central underpinning of this episode, which is this this revised version of Hamlet that's like everyone's worst adaptation in high school type thing where it's set in like gangland Chicago or something stupid, and is like edgy and evolved. Yeah, where do we want to start, I guess? Is there any...
You just don't appreciate that Art Nuevo.
Clearly not. Clearly not.
Not a fan of the DiCaprio Romeo and Juliet, are we?
No. There's an easy answer from me. There was a no. No, I don't mind it. The line that we get from Station 11 at the beginning is, once again... the opening lines of the comics. So it's I remember damage, then escape.
Then adrift in a stranger's galaxy
for a long time.
But I'm safe now. I found it again.
My home.
Brilliant thing is we get Miranda and Kirsten like intercut with this narration. It's I remember damage, then escape, then adrift in a strange galaxy for a long time. But I'm safe now. I found it again. My home. My home. Presumably that being Dr. 11 talking about this space station where he lives, Station 11. Yeah. Then we get, we get the Traveling Symphony's preparing to go on to the next place. Now they've been to St. Deborah's. We get the old boy from the Museum of Civilization, showing up again. And this is where Alex finds a pamphlet thing that's warning about the prophet, and where Kirsten learns sort of Alex reveals what the prophet said to her, which is that he tells Alex that post-pans were special, the first human generation to be rid from trauma, and that the survivors were the only liars left. And Kirsten says that's what the Undersea thought, referring to the people from Station 11, which is our first big lore drop, I guess, for like what this comic is maybe about. As we then go back to Jeevan and Kirsten living in the woods, and Jeevan basically criticizing Station 11 or interrogating what Kirsten thinks it means. Yeah. What do you guys make of this little opening here, and the revelation, or the prophet's position, I guess?
I wrote down the creepy guy has a cult of children.
Yep.
I don't know. I was kind of not expecting that. I don't really know what to make of it, of what it's meant to be in the comic, though. I guess it's not too clear yet.
No, you do find out a bit later what the Undersea is, so I guess we'll talk about that when it comes up in the natural plot of the episode. But suffice it to say, none of this guy's ideas are original. I'll say that. But yeah, it is weird. It sounds very it sounds unlikely. You know what I mean? Like, I think until you get the kids showing up at the resort, it does seem like it's not true, maybe? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing, like, cults are weird, hey? Like, they just... I don't know. If you find a setting that with, people that are, like, desperate enough for meaning, like,
Yeah.
you can have anything as your foundation, I suppose.
Correct. Yeah. It turns out even a comic book that you pretend isn't the inspiration, and that it all just came to you divinely or whatever.
A few just like random production details I like in this opening. I mean, every time we see this setting, like the clothes that the survivors are wearing are always interesting. Like Alex, for example, is wearing, her top is like two tops sewed together kind of thing, and Kirsten is always, the last time she was wearing like a bathing suit just as clothes. All the survivor, like, the texture of this world is really like kind of thought out, I feel.
Especially for the symphony, because they dress differently than the people at the resort too. Like, they have a troop-ish quality to them of like, it's all just whatever they can recover on the road sort of thing. Yeah.
And I think for Alex, she's like making hers specifically, like she's the, I want to say manic pixie, but that's probably not right. But she wants to make something that's bright and colorful and different. So she's purposefully sewing two different tops together when she could have just worn both of them separately. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she does cartwheel away. That is manic behavior.
It's a good way to dodge. Yeah, my note here says Alex is the most manic person on the planet. Cartwheeling away is a great way to avoid an emotional conversation. Because Kirsten's like trying to talk to her about the prophet. She's like, cartwheel, and it's like, God damn it, like, come back. What are you doing? It's very funny.
And I love the this Museum of Civilization guy. Like, it's like you have every reason to distrust this guy, but like you just look at him and listen to what he says. It's like he's just so like emollient and like just doesn't want to like cause any trouble or anything like that. He's just like, all right, I'll try and catch you in the next in the next road. Like,
He's so unthreatening.
yeah.
And they kind of skip over the fact that they have electricity there too, or at least he hints at it, and then they don't really catch on.
Well, it's not just that they have electricity, but it's that they have a CD player. Because Sarah's like, how do you play it? And then the conversation moves on. Because it's clear that the troupe has a record player, because that's what Sarah's playing when Kirsten manipulates her to go to Pingtree. But like, maybe they don't have a CD player. You know? It's an interesting detail. And also a thing that will be really important, like the Museum of Civilization as an idea, low-key a thing that you should care about and keep in the back of your head. Yeah.
Also, weird side note, just because we were talking about the CD, is it's like Sarah literally only took the CD to be sure that no one else would be able to ever listen to it.
I think so. Which is very funny and
wild.
Petty. Yeah, it's very petty. But it's fair enough. Like, she's like, I recorded all these, like, when my dad was dying. It's all I think about when I hear them is that. Yeah.
And it's like that. I feel like it edits the meaning of published work after an apocalypse. Like, it suddenly becomes very personal to you. Like, you know, if it's like art you produce like pre-apocalypse kind of thing. Like, you know, if you make an album, you sign it with a publisher, they release it. Like, that's it. Like, you got to accept that it's out there in the world. But like, I feel like after an apocalypse, if someone finds your work, you kind of have like, you might feel entitled to like own your work again somehow, maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was an artist literally reclaiming her work. And the dude was like, he had it because it was like, I love this disc, right? He's like, I love these tracks, and she's like, nope, not for you anymore.
Yeah, she's like, I don't know you. I didn't give you permission to like listen to my shit. Like, give that back, kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, if you think about like how all of their art now is a moment in time, like nothing that they do endures beyond the moment that the symphony does their performances. I think there's something there as well about like art has once again become a thing that isn't recorded. It's just the end of the world for you, man. Okay, so let me set up the resort, because I think there's a few big pieces here that we can talk through. So Gil is Sarah's ex and the ex-director of the symphony. He has moved in with his new wife to a golf resort place, like a country club sort of thing, which they've apparently surrounded with mines. And something I really love about this TV show is everyone's reaction to the mines is 100% appropriate. No one is cool about this at all. Everyone just immediately freaks out. As they're walking up and the golf cart comes up and they're like, stop, there's mines or whatever. And they're sort of having this yelling conversation between them. And this is where Gil reveals like that all of the children have gone. And Alex just runs down the hill without thinking, to go and hug Gil, and everyone is freaking the fuck out. And Kirsten has an iconic line that is ripped straight from the book, which is, Gil, we almost died. Could you not be an asshole for a second? Truly iconic. It's a real Kirsten moment. And then the underlying tension here is the prophet has basically like taken all their children, or convinced all their children to leave. And Sarah and Gil are sort of squaring off a little bit. He's basically accusing her of having no new ideas, and so she quite reactively decides that they're going to stage one of the rewrites of Hamlet that one of the symphony have been working on, with Alex as the lead rather than Kirsten. And she then, the whole point of them coming here is that she hits Station 11 in Gil's office, and she wants to confirm that the book is still there. Because she is trying to figure out if or how the prophet has read Station 11, if there's only one copy. And then the big sequence that we get is they do the play. We get a bit of prep for the play. They do the play, and as this is all happening, there's a rift between Alex and Kirsten that's sort of forming as Sarah and Gil sort of circle each other kind of, and he kind of admits that he misses the theater to an extent, or the symphony. And I'll talk about his quote in a second, because he quotes the Tempest, and once again, there's a small portion of Shakespeare theory we must do, but yeah, have you got what stuff do you guys want to talk about with the this setup here with the resort?
Before your next monologue?
It's interesting how Alex's reaction when she runs over to Gil and she's like crying on his shoulder and stuff like that. Like, I mean, does that not kind of seem like he is like a cult of personality, or he has a cult of personality? Like just that way she's absolutely like fawning over him kind of thing. Like it's I feel like
it is weird.
Yeah. It's
Well,
like a
he was like
sort of-
he was the head of the whole troop for like probably her entire life, right? So that's probably like her father figure.
Yeah. So it's interesting how, you know, like Gil is some sort. Oh, no, sorry. David, the prophet, is some sort of foil, like to Gil. Like he, you know, they're both ostensibly like kind of acting as a father authority figure to children. But you know, we sort of learn that Gil is just like a regular, like just a well-adjusted person, it seems, and that's the difference between him and this prophet guy.
Yeah.
Did it specifically say that the prophet was only stealing children? Because I thought it, like, I never really got that impression. I thought it was just like he took these kids, but it doesn't, like, not he's only taking kids.
I got that impression that he's only taking kids.
Yeah, it says cult of children. I don't know whether that means that like he's not killing other people or he's not kidding. I'm not sure.
Like the flyer said cult of children, or...
The flyer did, yeah.
Okay.
And we know that he's interested in people that were post-pandemic as well. Because he's like, well, they're the only people that are good, and that the people from... The only liars left are the survivors, basically. And that the post-pans are special. So there's something... And obviously, the post-pans would be children. It also is interesting to think about how old he seems to be when we meet him in the previous episodes, right? Like, the prophet seems like he's maybe around Kirsten's age, so, like, was he alive during the pandemic? You know, I think that's also a question, right?
Well, the beards are tough because they'll also add on years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, he does have a very youthful looking face, though.
I think it's an interesting question for us to keep in mind is like this ideology he's producing, how much of it does he actually believe, if any? Especially knowing so much of it comes from Station 11. It's like, are we to read this as just complete manipulation? Or does he believe this? You know, what's his... What is going to end up being his position, I guess?
I like Kirsten's line toward the end of this episode where she's describing her interactions with the prophet, and she goes, it's almost like he knew that I knew that he was lying, and he was sort of reveling in this game that we were playing. I thought that was like a really good line.
I don't think it's probably an accurate reading as well, because there is something about you know, the fact that these lies are so obvious, and people just don't pick up on it; they just go along with it. You know, the fact that his wife, he says that his wife's name was Rose, and immediately it's like, oh yeah, by any other name? Like, are you kidding me? Like, come on, like this is, it's so obvious that he was lying.
Well, the lies weren't obvious to anyone post, because, you know?
Yeah,
like
because
it was only because
yes.
she had lived before that she knew that they were lies. Otherwise, she wouldn't have known Mackinac was the correct pronunciation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
And also, doesn't Gills say like that he came one day, told a story, and then he came back the next day with a different story?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, so it seems like he clearly is just I don't know, seeing how far he can get just by blatantly lying.
He came back without the foot in the cast. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he like it's like, you know, he turned up and had this story and had been attacked, and then the next day he came back and the cast was gone and it was a different story, like that type of thing. Yeah.
Which made me also wonder about like what, because we had talked time travel before, and like Kirsten like stabbed him the day before, and then he had to go regenerate, and now his leg is healed. Like, I don't know, some X-Men sounding stuff, but
I mean, that was a while ago. They clearly went to. That must have been a while ago because she was reading Station 11. Actually, I guess we don't know the time scales. We don't know how long ago that was, I guess.
and we don't know his regenerative capabilities, so
it must have not. It must have not been that long ago because like it's still fresh in Alex's mind. This, like, you know, what the prophet was saying to her.
Yeah, and I also imagine he went there beforehand. Like, I was imagining that he had gone to Pingtree before he went to St. Deborah's. But also that would make sense because they're close by. So, yeah. Yeah, interesting. I don't know.
Another
what to make
really,
of that.
I had a funny thought about Gil, that everyone like talks about him really highly. Like, you know, he was a fantastic director and a great actor and all this stuff, right? And I was really happy because I was like, Tobias finally made it.
How long are you cooking on that joke, huh? A minute, clearly. Yes. I like this. I like that when Kirsten sneaks into his office. So that, yeah, she gets dumped from the lead, and, you know, she's going to go look for the book. And she confirms the book is there. It doesn't actually tell us whether or not the prophet's read it, but at least her copy is there, that she takes with her. And Gil reveals he's writing an oral history of the world, which is very funny because he's
really?
like,
I missed that bit.
Yeah, he's like, you know, it's really hard to write an oral history of the world, especially, you know, after the world ended, which is very funny. And then he has a little quote from the Tempest. But yeah, that's what that big book is on his desk. Is he's writing an oral history of the world.
It's an epic book.
Pretty funny. All right, quick Shakespeare side, and then we can move on. So, Kirsten asks Gil whether, you know, retirement is good and like whether he's enjoying it here, and he quotes the Tempest. And the bit that he quotes is, "Our revels are now ended. Ye, all which it inherit, shall dissolve. Where such stuff as dreams are made on, a little life rounded with a sleep." Which is a pretty like famous line from the Tempest, basically about like everything that you are will eventually dissolve. We're just small people, and all we are is this little bit of life, and then sleep. Goes on to sort of talk about the baseless fabric of this vision of like the way that like life is basically this illusion, and that we're the stuff that dreams are made of. And that none of this is really real. Where none of us are really real. We're just these moments that exist and then fade out. And I think it's just a good, like the fact that he quotes The Tempest, which is like one of Shakespeare's least popular plays, and also the last play that we know Shakespeare wrote. I think is trying to position Gil maybe against Sarah in some way, who he talks about her as being kind of boring or unable to come up with new stuff. Because she's always doing the same, you know, she does the same plays like Hamlet, just the popular ones, just the hits. There's something pedestrian about that in comparison to something like The Tempest, which is a bit more sophisticated and a bit less popular. I think it's trying to, if you understand Shakespeare, I think it's doing some stuff with Gil to make him a more, like you were saying before, Pat, like a more thoughtful, maybe like more rounded person that, you know, is quite put together and has a good view of the world, sort of thing.
But I like how they always temper those characterizations with the opposite, like his book. He's writing an oral history of the world. You know, you can imagine what that book is like. It's probably very like inaccurate and sloppy and just like stream of consciousness kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's a bit of a dick. That's the other thing. Like for all his sophistication, he's kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
If that was Shakespeare's last, I was wondering if that was like foreshadowing to Gil's death.
Probably. Yeah, could be. I mean, it's always tough in this show because it's like how much of something is foreshadowing and how much of it is like directly shadowing. Where it's like, oh, we'll see that again, but in a different context. Okay, so next thing I have is Kirsten's book report on Station 11, where we actually learn the plot of Station 11. Do you guys have anything before that?
I think we already went past it, but the bit where she and Jeevan are outside and he's like skinning some foxes or coyotes or something, and it's the first time that we've seen him like doing something competently, and it just like really struck me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's like skinning them and they're gonna cook them or whatever. And yeah, that's where he's interesting because he gives he gets her to read that line from the book, which is like, to the monsters, we are the monsters. He's like, what does that even mean? Like, and she's like, well, you know, like you murdered that family of wolves, so like from their perspective, you're a monster. And he's like, okay, murder's a bit strong. But yeah, he seems to know what he's doing, which is interesting.
Fuck, I love Jeevan. I don't know. He's just always like has no like patience for anything. It seems.
Yeah, he's just constantly put upon. He's like, oh, for God's sake.
Yeah.
I also like the detail that, I mean, that's, they've been more out of the city for a year by that point, something like that. And yeah, there seems to be some divide between them that's growing. And he seems to blame the book.
Do we see Frank anywhere in this scene? Or is it implied that he's gone? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we don't see him.
We never see him after the apartment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this was clearly before she meets Sarah and joins the Traveling Symphony, I guess.
There is some kind of weird flashback that we get of like her screaming, and Frank and Jeevan are both, I don't know if they're in their apartment or not, but like someone bursts in with a gun or something, I'm assuming is their reaction, but it's like, 3 seconds of a clip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the show does that a lot, where it just gives you like a snippet of a vibe of a moment. Yeah. Well, and this is clearly, they're clearly in the cabin that she's talking about in the previous episode, where Alex is like, did you go to the cabin this year to check for signs of Jeevan?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we get our
Yeah,
cabin.
I haven't really put it together that like the Jeevan Kirsten part of this episode. It's like, yeah, there seems to be something like bubbling up in Jeevan, like some sort of dissatisfaction or something kind of evil, maybe, like because he seems to abandon Kirsten at the end.
Yeah, well, he
Yeah,
basically
I don't know what the
says like
hell's going
since he met her, he's not made a single decision, right? Like there's something about his agency. What does he say? He says, "Whatever happens to you is my fault. I haven't made a single choice for myself since I met you. I was just supposed to walk you." And he's yelling this at Kirsten as Kirsten is yelling this at Alex. Like it's the same argument but intercut.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. And then the voices are like overlapping.
Yeah, which is fascinating. And it's one of those things of like, I understand that this, like, I don't think it's supposed to be literal. I think it's like, I'm not sure that literally she's yelling the same thing. I think it's that, like, it's the same fight. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the same type of argument. It's the same type of divide. And it seems ostensibly based around the book, because when Jeevan leaves, he takes the fucking book with him. And that's that scene you get later, is he comes back because he leaves the book in the Ziploc for Kirsten, but he doesn't come back and say, he does it without interacting with her, kind of thing. Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah. But then I think, okay, so let's quickly go through the summary of what the book, what Station 11 is about, because we get some flashbacks to the apartment where she's doing some kind of book report, and it seems like she's made them stage a play of Station 11 as well at some point. And she says Station 11 is the story of a stranger named Dr. 11, who we first meet floating unconscious in space, and who then gets stuck aboard a broken space station. Captain Lonergan is in charge, but he has no crew and is locked inside the bridge and just drinks scotch and talks about the past. An explosion destroyed the gyroscope and spilled half an ocean into the workstations of the crew. This drowned every grown-up. The survivors are kids called the Undersea. They want to go home and build a future Earth by using time travel. Dr. 11 talks to both sides and doesn't care what happens or what they do. So, the survivors are kids called the Undersea. And earlier in the episode, we had Alex say the post-pans were special, the first human generation to be rid from trauma, and that the survivors were the only liars left. And Kirsten says that's what the Undersea thought. So, I think our supposition here is that you've got Captain Lonergan and Dr. 11, all of the other adults are dead, and the survivors, who are the children, called the Undersea, want to go home and build a future Earth by using time travel because they believe that the only liars, that the survivors, which is to say Lonergan and Dr. 11, are the only liars left, and everyone else is like innocent or whatever, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah, I guess like maybe even in an apocalypse, like there's that trend that continues of, you know, the younger generation blaming their troubles on like the older ones kind of thing, like, you know, leaving the world in the state that it is, you know, it's we're the ones that are going to fix it maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or that like we shall inherit the Earth type of thing.
Yeah.
Did you guys clock the time travel as well?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, the boys are gonna write that down.
Wait, what? Where?
In the in Kirsten's description, she's talking about the Undersea, which is the children, and she says they want to go home and build a future Earth by using time travel.
Oh, gotcha.
And I was like, this maybe implies our story will have time travel ? And then we get Kirsten in the apartment.
One thought that I had about the book's description and then like the real life counterpart is wondering if there's a comparison being made between government and civilians, and like the government being wiped out by the virus is all of the quote-unquote adults dying, and now it's the kids who are the quote-unquote pure ones who are the civilians who are no longer entrapped by government and capitalism and all of this stuff, and now the civilians can just like trade with each other and have a kind of more pure kind of life.
Yeah, I mean, you could certainly read it that way. I think that I would always think that is buried in Mandel's work, to be fair. Like, I think that's something that is probably true. I'm not sure how literal I would be in my interpretation of that, but like, I think there's an implication there's something more pure or more authentic about after the collapse in some way, that this motivation of the Undersea points toward, I guess.
Well, I guess, you know, the thing about like children inheriting the world, like, and you know, all the troubles of the world being blamed on like the older generation, like I guess there is no like there is no more intense feeling that you could get from that than the setting of an apocalypse. Like, you know, if you have Alex in the last couple episodes, you know, really inquiring about like, oh, how do phones work? You're telling me you had all this like amazing technology in the palm of your hands. Like, I'll never get to experience that kind of thing. Like, I feel like it's a sort of, if you have this propaganda, fed into you by the prophet, it's sort of like an understandable feeling to have, that like the understandable feeling of resentment to have toward like the people who caused this apocalypse, maybe.
Mm.
And that's why it's resonant. That's why it works. What the prophet's saying.
Yeah, and that like the problem is they remember what the problem is the survivors remember what it was like before, and they're like holding us back in some way by not letting us move on, and not being willing to like let the past go. Because one of the divides between Kirsten and Alex is that like Kirsten's clearly killed people and like carries weapons with her everywhere she goes, and Alex just seems to think that isn't necessary. You know what I mean? Like there's something in that of like Kirsten's lack of trust is instrumentalized by the prophet, or quote unquote the pre-pan people. It's instrumentalized by the prophet to be some kind of thing that's wrong with them, or something impure, that they have this trauma that keeps them safe, or whatever you want to think about the way that Kirsten uses violence. It's kind of messy, but it's all there.
I think there's a problem with that though, because they are like only portraying her as being the one who's concerned about security and everything, but in this episode we see something that I had mentioned prior that I would have been obsessed with, because when they come to the stop and the guy is like, circle up the wagons, post we're gonna have post a sentry over here and post a sentry over here, and like they're actually talking about security. And when the guy comes up on his bicycle, they immediately yell out stranger, and then all of them pass along. Each one shouts out stranger and passing it down the line so everyone knows there's a stranger approaching. And then when they realize no danger, they shout no danger and they pass that down the line. So there is this, the entire group has this knowledge that the world is dangerous, but they're painting, but like the story paints it like only Kirsten is afraid of the world. So I don't know.
No, I think it's the other way around. It's that only Alex is treating the world like it isn't dangerous. That's my reading of it.
Okay.
Because she's the youngest, right? That's sort of the thing there. Yeah. So other way around.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, this argument between them is pretty rough as well. Because Alex reveals it's before the play, so they're going to do this adaptation of Hamlet. That Alex told the prophet she would leave the symphony. And I think this is where this focal point of like the pre-pan and the post-pan comes into the frame, and you basically have this fight, and Kirsten, quite astutely is like, well, you can't take that back, the fact that you said that. Like, you can't pretend like nothing has changed between us. And as they do the play and they do the argument between Hamlet and Ophelia, Kirsten storms off after saying, fuck you, Hamlet. And it's a bit too real. Like, she's acting a bit too well. And after the play, Alex has this, for lack of a better word, manic episode. As she's like bouncing off the walls, and Kirsten's trying to talk to her, and they can't connect. There's this friction between them that keeps building. And then we go back to Kirsten and Jeevan, with this argument they're having, which is why he says that thing about, I haven't made a single choice for myself since I met you. There's some other details here which are kind of relevant, which is that we quietly learn that they stayed at Frank's so that Kirsten could stage a play. It seems like an adaptation of Station 11, maybe, we're not sure. And as this is all happening, that argument, like we said, is happening in the past and the present at the same time between Jeevan yelling at Kirsten and Kirsten yelling at Alex. And these little flashbacks of Kirsten effectively raising Alex, right? She's like her big sister. Yeah. What do you guys, what do you then make of the ending of this episode? So we then get these children arriving just as Alex leaves. And the children are wearing landmines, which they call beacons for the Prophet. And yeah, the two kids converge and they hug Gil. I think they're supposed to be his grandkids, maybe, or something like that. And yeah, it's then intercut with Jeevan returning and leaving the book, but not interacting with Kirsten and leaving her at the cabin. And she's watching Star Trek or something as well. Which is a detail that is relevant because the quote that's on the Traveling Symphony, which is like, survival is in... Oh, no, that's not it. Hold on. Station 11. Wagon quote. I just know it's from Star Trek. It's the thing where that's from. Yeah, because survival is... It's Traveling Symphony, and the lead caravan has the slogan, because survival is insufficient. And because survival is insufficient is a quote from Star Trek. But it's also a quote from Station 11, the book, the comic book. It's both. Yeah, what do you guys make of the ending? Gil gets exploded. It's pretty
I loved
dire.
it so much.
Yeah. It's so creative to put landmines on children. And, like, diabolical, too. Like, I don't know that most TV shows would go for this.
Yeah, like, it's quite a jump from, like, you know, creepy cult leader to turning kids into suicide bombers. Like, if you had any doubts before about if this guy is evil,
yeah.
this will clear it up.
Moral alignment confirmed.
Yeah.
And you could also argue that the entire... So like, the Prophet's whole thing was like, we need to get the children because they're the pure ones, but then he just killed off 2 of the pure ones, which makes 0 sense.
Yep.
Except for that one of the kids seemed very specifically to have been sent to lower Kirsten down so that she could see the explosion and see Gil get killed, which will then force her to go do something else, which we don't know yet, which will be worth getting 2 of the innocents killed to the Prophet to get Kirsten to do whatever the thing is.
I actually think that's probably right. Like, I think that there is something about her that is of interest to the Prophet, right? Like, and you got to, at this point, be maybe thinking, like, is it the fact that she's the only person ever who's recognized that all of his ideology is based on this comic book and that all of his quotes are from this comic book? Like, is that where the fixation comes from? Like, we just don't know yet, but I think that's probably right. I think it is the case that he wants her to see this for some reason, and we don't really know why.
Yeah, the way that we didn't say this at the beginning, but the way that he talks about her to her when they first kind of meet was very much like Morpheus talking to Neo. It was like, you're everything I imagined that you would be. It's like he had kind of met the chosen one, and he kept saying, like, you're amazing. And she always looked at him like weird, like, what do you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like this is all stuff that we're missing context that's going to be revealed in later episodes. Specifically about the relationship to, like, the Prophet and Kirsten, like, and the fact that he's so familiar with her.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have to binge this entire thing again once we're done.
Oh, I fully was going to give you guys 2 weeks, like, when we finish, so you can rewatch the whole show. That was sort of my plan. This has the quality of most Emily St. John Mandel fiction, where you finish it and you're like, I've got to read that again. Like, Sea of Tranquility, I literally finished it, and on my tablet, I was like, page 1. Like, I didn't even get up. I was like, give me that again.
Damn.
It's that good. Okay, but
even beyond all that, like, the ending for me is one of the most memorable endings to, like, an episode or a movie or whatever. You've got Sarah that is playing an amazing song on the piano, and the piano's just, like, sitting out in this, you know, beautiful yard with the house thing way in the background, and in the midst of her playing this this banging song. Her glasses get knocked off, and then they get crushed. Someone accidentally steps on them, and whoever it was that stepped on him was like, oh, she's gonna be so upset when she finds out, because these are the only glasses, you can't get more. So now the composer is blind for the rest of the time, and all of that is just minutes before or seconds before Gil gets blown up by the children that he had with the woman that he left Sarah for. And then I had said in the chat to like keep listening through the credits, because the music keeps going, and it was just so beautiful. I listened to all the way through the credits. The music was just gorgeous. I loved it so much. Everything about this, from the piano to the explosion, I adored this ending.
Yeah, the album for this, like the soundtrack for this TV show, is amazing. You unfortunately can't listen to it till we finish the show, because it has spoilers in it somehow. I won't say how, but yeah, the OST is phenomenal. And that moment where I think it's Deirdre that stands on the glasses, to be fair. Yeah, there's also like there's a mechanistic question here, which is like, well, the resort is now exploded. Are the people that lived here just gonna join the symphony? Like, what actually happens logistically after this? Like, that's a question. And a bigger question that I have is, why is this episode called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Aren't Dead? Because the play is called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. You know? Like, I have no idea. I'm not trying to be, like, coy. Like, I genuinely have no... I don't know. Because of all the talk in the last episode of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, like, you would think that the episode title would cohere into something. But then I don't know.
I mean, it could be extremely literal, and it could be saying that Arthur is not dead. Arthur and Clark.
Arthur's the deadest man who's ever died.
We don't see that. He goes off in an ambulance to the hospital.
He dies in front of us on screen. You see him stop breathing.
No. Tanya rides with him to the hospital. You wouldn't ride with a dead man.
Yeah, you would.
Like, he's still sort of... Would you?
Yeah, dude. They take you to the hospital. They confirm you're dead. That's normal.
That's my only theory.
Maybe it's something about like the life of art, the life that art takes on. You were saying how in the play or the movie that it's based on, it's got some like coy humor with how it acknowledges that like those two characters aren't the most important characters. But it has like a really resonant significance in the last episode, and in this episode it's also this episode is so heavily about the life that Station 11 takes on after it gets after its release and after the apocalypse, and now it moves and shapes and inspires people and stuff like that. And it's just some random comic book, but it's produced. The effect it's produced is like really like significant in these communities and stuff. So I don't know. Maybe it's just about how how unexpected the effects of like some art are, or something like that.
Yeah, and I also probably think it's like if you think about Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead as like an idea, it's functionally a story that takes place in the margins of another story, right? Like, it's these two characters are trapped in this incomprehensible plot they themselves don't understand. Like, they don't know why Claudius has told them to spy on Hamlet. It is the margins of a story and of life. Like, they're just like two guys. They're not the main characters. They're not the protagonists. And that's kind of the position I think that Kirsten finds herself in this episode, is she's kind of in the middle of everyone else's stories. She's in the margin of the prophet story in some way she doesn't understand. She's in the margins of Sarah and Gil's relationship. And she gets sidelined from being the protagonist and from being the lead when Alex gets cast. So I also think maybe it's about the type of the position this episode has within the structure of the TV show as well. To me, there's a disorientation to the events that occur, because all of this happens because Kirsten's like, I need to check if the book is still there. We don't know if Gil still gets exploded if she's not there, because it seems like the prophet has some fascination with her, and so she's kind of operating within the margins of some larger story that she doesn't understand, and also that we don't understand yet. We lack context to understand why these things are happening. So part of me wonders if it's also that aspect.
And while she is in the, she's a central character in Jeevan's life, it's also like he just abandons her, and we have no idea what was going on in his head, but obviously it was paramount to him, kind of thing. And we're just left to experience the aftermath through Kirsten's perspective,
Yeah.
I was also wondering if Rosencrantz and Guildenstern could be thought of as just like an idea, and if they represent like betrayal and evil and like the old world. And so this episode being called They're Not Dead could mean that evil and betrayal aren't gone, even though the prophet is saying like this is the new world and those things are gone. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I see that.
Although I'm not sure that I think in Hamlet they're obviously bad. In Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. That very much paints them as like they're like the antithesis to Hamlet. Like they ask questions, they're curious, they're always playing games and stuff, and they are sort of probing the world for some meaning of some description. And there's this supposition, I think, that or the thesis that play has is perhaps that the fact that they are dead is like not the point. Like the point is that like in some way they will always be alive because they were looking for the meaning of life, and they were always trying to figure out what life meant, living in the margins and not being these main characters. There's something. They represent the fleetingness and the everyday human experience of trying to make meaning from like the short life that you have until the inevitable happens, right? So then the opposite of that is like, well, they're not dead. That also means the same thing as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, in a way, like that, because the play means that. That's why it's called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, is because they die. That's how it goes in Hamlet. But that means the same thing as they aren't dead, because this is a play where they're alive. Anyway, I don't know, but that's all there. I think, yes, all of the above might be the answer to why it's called that. I just thought that was notable because of how heavily that featured in the previous episode.
We should be noting all these questions and then do like a wrap-up episode after we've rewatched the entire thing.
Just Darth solving the text like a puzzle. Yeah.
Yep, that's what I live for.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of question marks in my notes, so I can always control F for those. All right. That's everything I've got. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Point out a really great line by Alex. She says, "It's the traveling carnival of trauma," it's part of her reasoning as to why she feels like trapped and unable to, experience a great deal of things, because she's being held back by the pre-pans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I hate that name so much because I keep going into like the Peter Pan world and like before he was Peter Pan. But I'm also a mild bit tipsy, so there's that in there too.
I like the Darth, like, you sniffed the bourbon and you were like, now I'm drunk.
Yeah. That's all it
No
takes.
tolerance. Yeah, it is pretty rough. I also like that we get a little bit of a resolution with Gil and Sarah before Gil dies, where, like, you know, she's like, I never really treated you very well. And he's like, I don't know, like, you wrote in your symphony every year, like, you did all right by me. I like that they sort of, despite all of this between them, they part on fairly copacetic terms. I could see a different show playing up the melodrama of their unresolved issues and having that be Sarah's defining characteristic moving forward, you know, that type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
There's
glad
a
that
really
that didn't happen.
there's an odd like Cinema Sins note that I've been debating about whether this ending would have been better if they had done it, which is the fact that like in real life, in a like, you know, humidity controlled home, it's really difficult to keep a piano in tune. So this piano, where you don't have a professional tuner that could come in and do anything, and when the piano's outside, would not have sounded that good. And how would this ending have played out if that song that Sarah was playing had been very tonally dissident? Like, it would have given a very different vibe to the end of it if everything was just kind of like slightly out of tune.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
it would have been like,
I was thinking that piano is going to get ruined out in the rain like that. Yeah.
I'm glad it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
Did you guys note down the dialogue from Star Trek that Kirsten's watching?
No.
So it's
You
made
said
up,
it
first
earlier,
of all.
right?
No, I did not, actually. It's made up.
It's made up?
Yeah, it's not from a
Oh.
real episode. It's part of, it starts real and then it changes. So it's Captain's Log, Stardate 2817.6. Starship Enterprise diverted the schedule for the purpose of a confirmed discovery by Dr. Thomas Layton, an extraordinary new synthetic flu which would totally end the threat of famine. You mean to tell me you called me 3 light years off course just to accuse an actor of being bogus? Now, I don't know what the fuck that means.
Yeah,
I was about to say, like, how drunk am I? That didn't make sense at all.
I was waiting for you to break it down after it.
Don't know. Not sure. Yeah. I mean, the wagons, the traveling symphony, have Star Trek on the front. Beyond that, I don't know. Extraordinary new synthetic flu, which would totally end the threat of famine. An extraordinary new synthetic flu. Oh, which would totally end the threat of famine because everybody dies. That makes sense. Yeah. You mean to tell me you called me 3 light years off course just to accuse an actor of being... That's the bit that I don't know what to do with.
Also, do you realize the irony of them having Star Trek stuff on their wagons? Because the whole point of Star Trek is to go where you've never gone before, to map out new parts of the galaxy,
Yes.
to
And they-
explore new things, and
Yeah,
they
they never leave the
refuse to
wheel.
leave the wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good stuff. That's actually really good stuff, Darth. That is like really like... That is the foundational Emily St. John Mandel maneuver, is like irony that isn't cynical. I think that's like a defining quality of her work. Yeah. God damn, these were some banger episodes, you guys. You kidding me? God, so good. And that ending, man. It's hard to articulate the cultural internet moment when this episode came out. People freaked out. They were like, what the fuck? I thought episode 3 was good. Are you kidding me? People were loving it. So, it's not just us. Don't worry.
How long ago was this? Like when it aired?
2021.
Okay.
Yeah. So, the book was 2016, 2015, and then, yeah, the TV show's 2021. As I was saying last week, like, became famous because of our actual pandemic, and launched St. John Mandel into stardom. as she was dealing with the fact that her book was becoming popular because of like COVID, and then she wrote a book about that experience that then became Sea of Tranquility. It is the most mindfuck shared universe, but isn't a shared universe thing where like that story has a character in it who wrote a novel about a pandemic wiping out the end of the world that became really famous during a pandemic. It's very confusing, but it's still Mandel writing
Charlie
the book.
Kaufman.
I know it's fucking obnoxious, but it is so good. I promise we will read Sea of Tranquility once we finish this TV show. I promise. I have to do that for the Patreon at some point. Cool. That's it. That's all I got. You guys got anything else you wanna touch on?
Nope.
Darth?
I'm gonna go eat second dinner.
Excellent.
And yes.
Yeah, I'm keen for lunch. All right. That will do it. Patrick, very quickly, or as long as you need. I don't know why I said very quickly. Where can people find you on the internet if they want more of you?
People can find me on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcasts. Look up A Method to the Madness. We also have a website, amttm.com. You can find all our episodes and socials from.
Love it. Do it. Go check it out. Links, as always, down below. I was going to ask Darth if you've got anything you want to plug, but I know for a fact you don't because that script is now with me and I haven't replied to your comments. That one's on me. But you can go find everything.
Is that a Darth Maul lightsaber you got right there? What the heck?
Yeah, it's been sitting right here. Good
is it? Okay, I did not notice that. That's cool.
It's a key prop on the set.
Yeah.
It was the one thing that I was like, that doesn't make any sense, but it's Darth, so of course it's gonna be a
No,
lightsaber.
it totally it totally makes sense.
You're in fucking
It's
Narnia,
me.
and it's like, bro, like, come on.
Yeah.
Mr. Tomness is like, no, like, what are you doing, Master Skywalker?
And the more tips I get, the more I just like reach around and just play with stuff.
It's just moving shit. Don't put your hand in the fire. Absolute flat. Anyway, you can if you want to. I'm not sure if that's like a vote of confidence with Darth's content, but there's a big project coming up. We're in the script supervision stage at the moment. Go to YouTube and search for Darth. Otherwise, you can find it. Links down below. If you've made it this far and you enjoy these 5-star runtimes, you know what it is. You can support us at patreon.com/zeroindent. They help us set aside the time to do this show. It's a lot of research behind the scenes. It's a lot of logistics. We appreciate any support you can give us to help keep independent media criticism alive. I think that's it. Underig.press for all of our merch. Everything else we do at zeroindent.com. Yeah, that's it. We appreciate the heck out of you guys supporting us wherever you watch this, whether it's YouTube or on your podcast feed. Consider giving us a like or review. Any engagement helps more people find the show, which is the only way that we get new listeners. We don't do any advertising outside of our network. And I don't make you listen to any stupid ads about mattresses or whatever. Or, so, you don't have to sit there and listen to a true crime ad for a podcast in the middle of this show. So, if you do enjoy this, please consider telling someone who you think might enjoy it to help spread what we do, because we think it's like a good thing to do and it's extremely fun to do as well. And if you enjoy this, please consider doing those things. That's it. We'll catch you guys next episode where we will be talking about the next 2 episodes, which will be episode 5 and 6. There was an exercise I was going to do that I don't know. Darth's on the front of a computer. Patrick, do you have the ability to look at the episode title for the next episode without spoiling it for yourself? Like, can you look at the title and tell us what it is? Is that technology that you have?
Okay. Yeah. Although my internet's being really slow.
He's doing it, folks.
Alright, hold on. Oh. Okay.
Recap : captives.
All right, the Seven City
that's episode
Airport.
6. Episode 5.
Episode 5, yeah. The Severn City Airport.
Oh.
Severn City Airport, followed
Severn,
by
yeah.
captives. Fun.
Then survival's insufficient. What list are you looking at?
Yeah, what are you looking at?
That's what the Google told me.
Oh, did the AI get it wrong? Shocking. It would never. I'm going to triple check that. Hold on. Episodes. Yeah, episode 5, the Savannah City Airport. Episode 6, survival is insufficient. Anyway, I just wanted to put the little sizzle out there of the Savannah City Airport because I was talking a lot about planes before. So, you know, airports, that's where the planes
Ooh.
sleep. You know? That's where they live.
Sure is.
Yeah. That's the kind of high-minded academia that you get at the Zero Intent Review. All right, that's us. We're getting out of here. And as always, it's just the end of the show. It's not the end of the world. Zero Indent is an independent publication dedicated to studying works of genre fiction, brought to you by our subscribers. Head to patreon.com/zeroindent to learn more and consider supporting us. Our theme song is The Swan by Alon Peretz. Our podcast cover art is by Crystal Hatay. Everything else is written, directed, and edited by me, DC McNeil. You can find our merch and books at underink.press and everything we do at zeroindent.com. The corridor was silent. It was necessary to walk very slowly, her hand on the wall. A man was curled on his side near the elevator, shivering. She wanted to speak to him, but speaking would take too much strength, so she looked at him instead. I see you, and hoped this was enough. The lobby was empty now. The staff had fled. Outside, the air was heavy and still. A greenish light on the horizon, the beginnings of sunrise. A feeling of moving in slow motion, like walking underwater or in a dream. It was necessary to concentrate carefully on each step. This terrible weakness. She followed the path to the beach, walking very slowly, her outstretched hands brushing the palm fronds on either side. At the bottom of the path, the hotel's white chaise lounges lay in a row on the sand, unoccupied. The beach was empty of people. She collapsed into the nearest chaise lounge and closed her eyes. Exhaustion. She was desperately hot, then racked with chills. Her thoughts were disordered. No one came. She was thinking about the container ship fleet on the horizon. The crew out there wouldn't have been exposed to the flu. Too late to get to a ship herself now, but she smiled at the thought that there were people in this reeling world who were safe. Miranda opened her eyes in time to see the sunrise. A wash of violent color, pink and streaks of brilliant orange. The container ships on the horizon, suspended between the blaze of the sky and the water aflame. The seascape bleeding into confused visions of Station 11, its extravagant sunsets and its indigo sea. The lights of the fleet fading into morning. The ocean burning into the sky. Say what you will, Mandel can do the damn thing. She can write a fucking book, let me tell you. You know? Alright, you ready?
I had the funny thought that, because you mentioned all of the boats that were, like, out at sea, and I'm like, so the tariffs that America is placing, where it's like forcing the boats to just stay out there because no one wants to pay the extra money for these, you know, all of these goods. And so all of those people are safe from the virus.
That's literally a plot point in this. There's a bunch of container ships that like can't come into dock because they haven't agreed. The Malaysians won't agree on like some tariff decision. That's literally in this book. It's not America.
Well, yeah, but no, I'm just saying, like, it's entirely different to say, like, oh crap, what if Trump accidentally saved the world?
Just a bunch of people on a boat. Yeah. All right, let's do it.